Chapter 26:61. Mu Jiangshan, who had his body shattered, was in extreme pain. Even though he immediately rebuilt his body, that punch had already heavily injured his origin, and it was impossible for him to recover right away. What was even more terrifying was that Kong Ju didn't stop. Boom! Kong Ju, who took the initiative to attack, was like a supreme being. 33 layers of heavens floated around him, and his chanting was like thunder, shaking the surroundings. He still used a simple and domineering punch, only this time, it was even more vast and contained the might of all things in the universe. Those undying beings all acted to block Kong Ju's attack. With a honglong sound, this was a type of unmatched fist intent that tore through everything in its path. Those undying beings were all shaken until they staggered backwards. Then, Mu Jiangshan, who had just recovered, screamed. His body was covered in cracks. This punch shattered his arm and pierced through his chest. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the void red. This was an unbelievable scene that froze here, causing many people's hearts to tremble. This was simply like a legend. With just 2 punches, a Nirvana realm undying was pierced through, domineering and domineering. Mu Jiangshan's body and soul were both destroyed, unable to recover. Quick, stop him. Kill! A great battle erupted. Everyone attacked at the same time, activating their precious technique. In an instant, the void was in chaos, heaven and earth seemed like it was being split apart. This place was about to explode. Mu Jiangshan's death deeply stimulated those undying beings. They all attacked violently, no longer holding back, and used the strongest techniques in their lives. Kong Ju's expression was indifferent as he strode through space and attacked. Every single move he made was filled with extraordinary might, and he easily crushed those killer moves that could shock the ages, causing him to be formidable to an inconceivable extent. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, even Ling Xuanzi and Lin Sun wouldn't believe that their junior uncle would be this powerful when he was awake. Clang! Zhong Liju's palm surged with peerless sword energy that could cut down the sun, moon, and stars. When this sword energy shot into the sky, even the sky was cut in half. However, it still couldn't stop Kong Ju's fist energy. The sword energy was crushed like dried twigs, turning into a rain of light that splashed everywhere. Moreover, that terrifying fist energy broke through all obstructions, arriving in front of him, directly blasting his body apart. It was too fast, everything happened incomparably fast. Even someone as strong as Zhongli Ju was like a piece of paper before this punch. His defensive treasures and strength were completely dispersed, and his entire body exploded in the sky and turned into a bloody mist. This shocked everyone. It was too sudden. Mu Jiangshan had been domineering his entire life, and had even reached the Nirvana God realm. However, he had still been blasted to pieces and perished. Even someone as ruthless and fierce as Zhongli Ju was killed at this moment, and his body was turned into minced meat. These types of figures died one after another. How could it not be shocking? How could it not draw attention? Many people felt great fear. Kong Ju's power made the bodies of the undying beings here go cold, as if they fell into an icy cavern. This was extremely terrifying. They were all giants of the 8th heaven. They had lived for a long time and had experienced countless trials and tribulations. They were truly powerful figures. However, it wasn't difficult for Kong Ju to kill them, and he didn't pay an unbearable price. He killed them directly, cleanly and neatly. On the battlefield, Kong Ju's figure was straight, and 33 worlds appeared around him. They rotated around him like light, sinking and floating. One could see the scenery of one great world after another. Living beings prayed, gods and demons kowtowed, and all spirits worshipped. It was mysterious and transcendent. This was an unimaginable power, beyond people's imagination and cognition. But at this moment, Kong Ju's figure suddenly twitched violently, and he stopped in the void. A look of pain and confusion appeared on his face, and there was even a hint of struggle in his eyes. Ling Xuanzi and Lin Sun's hearts thumped at the same time. It couldn't be that martial uncle's old illness is going to flare up again, right? Kill! Seeing this scene, Qi Tianlin and the others, who were originally terrified, didn't hesitate to attack as if they had seized the best opportunity. Boom! The Eastern Emperor bell rumbled, and auspicious light splashed everywhere, smashing fiercely on Kong Ju's body. The latter was directly shaken and staggered back, his body stained with blood. Such a scene caused Qi Tianlin and the others to be extremely excited. This old fellow's mental state really hasn't recovered. Kong Ju die! Qi Kanghun roared with laughter as he swung the soulfall whip, and it was like a ray of light that whipped fiercely towards Kong Ju. However, this strike was grabbed by a raise of Kong Ju's hand. Kong Ju had a savage expression and a ruthless gaze, yet it revealed a trace of resolution as he said, "Even if my mental state has fallen, killing all of you is as easy as flipping my palm." Qi Kanghun's pupils constricted, and he cried out in his heart. Bang! The soulfall whip suddenly emanated peerless might, and it shook Qi Kanghun's right arm to the point it almost shattered, causing him to let go at the first possible moment. Slap! Kong Ju's wrist shook, and the soulfall whip suddenly smashed down, and it struck fiercely onto Qi Kanghun's body before he could even dodge. Blood sprayed while Qi Kanghun let out a shrill cry of intense pain, and his soul was almost shattered by this whip. Bang! Amidst rumbling, Dong Wang Kong controlled the Eastern Emperor bell, while Qi Tianlin struck out a 9-colored divine stone, and they launched a pincer attack at Kong Ju from both sides. Kong Ju didn't dodge, and he went head-on against them with his body. Amidst the deafening sound of collision, he was injured once more. His body was blasted apart, his bones were exposed, and blood sprayed like a waterfall. However, he seized this opportunity to stride forward ferociously, and then he suddenly stretched out his hand and tore through the sky before grabbing the heavily injured Qi Kanghun in his hand. "No!" Qi Kanghun cried out loudly with terror as he struggled madly. But it was in vain in the end. As Kong Ju exerted strength with his hand, his entire body was crushed fiercely like a bug, and his body and soul core exploded while mixed within scarlet-red blood. An eternal figure at the rebirth god realm like this had actually been crushed into pieces. This overbearing and bloody scene caused Kong Ju to seem like a fiend god. However, Ling Xuanzi and Lin Sun were unable to arouse any happiness in their hearts. Because at this moment, Kong Ju was injured as well, and the situation he was in wasn't optimistic at all. Moreover, his aura was extremely violent and chaotic, and it seemed as if it would collapse completely at any moment. "Martial uncle, I'll help you." Ling Xuanzi charged out at the first possible moment, and he withdrew the endless pagoda and the 3,000 upheavals as he charged at Qi Tianlin. Presently, Qi Kanghun, Mu Jiangshan, and Zhongli Ju had been killed, and only Qi Tianlin and Dong Wang Kong remained. The situation was completely different from before. Humph! Qi Tianlin utilized the 9-colored divine rock, and its might was terrifying as he entered into a fierce battle with Ling Xuanzi. On the other side, Kong Ju, who had a gaze filled with madness and a vicious aura, seemed to be enduring extreme pain. But even then, he still teleported resolutely and charged towards Dong Wang Kong. Bang! He swung his fists and seemed to intend to blast Zhou Su apart, and the might of his fists was simply capable of shocking the ages. Dong Wang Kong exerted all his strength to resist, and he replaced offense with defense. The Eastern Emperor bell droned without end, and even though it was being suppressed by the might of Kong Ju's fists, it wasn't crushed in a short period of time. The reason was that even though Kong Ju's strength was still boundlessly terrifying at this moment, his mind was obviously in chaos, and it gave Dong Wang Kong an opportunity to catch his breath. "Old thing, when your state of mind collapses, it'll be the day you die," Dong Wang Kong shouted, and his gaze was terrifyingly cold. Kong Ju ignored him, or rather, he couldn't be distracted at all. His state of mind was on the verge of losing control, and his mind was muddled as well. He could only maintain a trace of clarity at this moment. During the battle, there were many times when he lost control of his killing moves, and they were thrown around randomly. This made Dong Wang Kong even calmer, and he even started to counterattack. From time to time, he would take advantage of Kong Ju's weakness, and he would continuously injure Kong Ju. This time, who can save you? Dong Wang Kong said coldly. Bang! Suddenly, a violent collision could be heard from afar, and then blood splattered. Dong Wang Kong's pupils suddenly shrank. Because in the battle not far away, Qi Tianlin was actually injured at this moment. His body was shattered by the Tower of Ceaseless, and only a portion of his primordial spirit managed to escape. This! Dong Wang Kong couldn't believe it. The power of time! The power of time! Qi Tianlin's primordial spirit screamed in shock and anger. This was naturally the effect of the forbidden divine ability. Together with Ling Xuanzi, it caught Qi Tianlin off guard and shattered his body. At this moment, Qi Tianlin, who had lost his body, wanted to escape immediately. But it was already too late. Bang! The 3,000 floating suns turned into the pattern of a crescent moon and 3 stars, and it spread out, sealing the void around him. Ling Xuanzi had already charged over with the Tower of Ceaseless. Instantly, Qi Tianlin's primordial spirit was also shattered, and it dissipated in the void. A series of scenes happened in the blink of an eye, and it was unbelievably fast. Even Dong Wang Kong was agitated by this scene. How could he fight? Kong Ju might not be a threat anymore, but Ling Xuanzi was still not to be underestimated. Uncle Master, leave this old fart to me. Hurry up and come back. Ling Xuanzi charged over with a murderous aura, and his handsome face was filled with hatred. As he spoke, he directly activated the Tower of Ceaseless and charged towards Dong Wang Kong. Clang! Amidst the earth-shattering sound of collision, the Eastern Emperor Bell blocked the attack of the Tower of Ceaseless. But at the same time, Kong Ju let out a loud roar, and he also charged over, punching towards Dong Wang Kong. Even though Dong Wang Kong tried his best to resist the unparalleled fist energy, his defensive treasures and Dao arts were shattered like paper. His entire body was smashed by the fist, and his bones were broken. His figure was sent flying. Seizing this opportunity, Ling Xuanzi directly pounced forward. The Tower of Ceaseless was like a divine mountain that descended from the heavens, and it ruthlessly smashed down on Dong Wang Kong before he could stabilize himself. Bang! The heavens and earth cracked and the void became chaotic. Dong Wang Kong, this rebirth god realm expert, wasn't able to wait for the opportunity to kill Kong Ju in the end, and he was killed on the spot by the joint forces of Kong Ju and Ling Xuanzi instead. Moreover, his body and soul core were transformed into ash amidst that attack and vanished completely. It's done. Ling Xuanzi was relieved, and he revealed a relaxed expression. Lin Sun, who had been protected by him, could not help but let out a long sigh. But before the two could rejoice, clang! A piercingly cold sword cry resounded, and it reverberated in the universe. What was even faster than the sound was a flying sword. It was like a ray of light that tore through time and space, and it flew over at an unbelievable speed. Poof! The sword pierced through Kong Ju's body. P.S. The second update is slightly later. Chapter 2662. The sword pierced through Kong Ju's body. Lin Sun felt as if he was struck by lightning, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How is this possible? It wasn't easy for him to kill those 5 undying beings, it wasn't easy for him to fight his way out. However, at this moment, all of his hopes were crushed by this sudden sword. Martial uncle! Lin Sun cried out in a hoarse voice. In his field of vision, a bloody hole appeared on Kong Ju's chest. His aura was declining, and he no longer had the demeanor of a supreme master. This sword didn't just heavily injure him, it seemed to have crushed his state of mind as well, causing him to fall into a muddled state of mind. I just want to drink, why do you want to kill me? Kong Ju's eyes were filled with confusion as he cried out in pain. Swoosh. In the next moment, Ling Xuanzi had already made a move. He kept Kong Ju's figure, and then he grabbed Lin Sun and teleported towards Chaotian City with all his might. His expression was cold and livid, and his eyes surged with terrifying madness. His entire body seemed to be burning as he gritted his teeth tightly. This battle was too difficult and dangerous. From killing the 4 Immortal Realm experts, Nan Faidu, Gu Lingzhen, Li Shangjuan, and Yun Jiwei, to being besieged by Dong Wang Kong and the other 4 Immortal Realm experts, it could be said that every step he took was filled with danger, and he barely escaped death. If it wasn't for Kong Ju, the consequences would simply be unimaginable. But now, after killing Dong Wang Kong and the others with great difficulty, a sudden sword came and destroyed everything. This blow was simply indescribable. Especially when he saw martial Uncle Kong Ju being pierced by this sword, Ling Xuanzi couldn't help but feel infuriated, and his eyes were bloodshot with hatred. But his rationality told him that he couldn't resist stubbornly like this. He wasn't afraid of death, but he couldn't watch as his junior brother Lin Sun died with him. Little junior brother, bring senior uncle along with you. This time, I'll give it my all to open up a path of survival for you. Remember, if I really die this time, help me kill those enemies. In this way, I'll be able to die a worthy death, and I'll be able to die in peace. As they teleported, Ling Xuanzi's voice was rare and gentle, as if he was giving instructions for his death. 4th senior brother. If we're going to die, we'll die together. Lin Sun's eyes were bleeding, and he was mad with hatred. He hadn't experienced such frustration for many years since he started his cultivation. The feeling of powerlessness made him so depressed that he was about to explode. Fool! Martial Uncle Kong Ju has already sacrificed so much for us. Do you want him to die with us? Only if you're alive will martial Uncle Kong Ju have a chance to survive. Ling Xuanzi's expression was calm, and his eyes were filled with self-mockery. Many years ago I was like a scourge in Fangsuan Mountain, and I did many stupid things. Be it 2nd senior brother Zhong Qiu, 3rd senior sister Ruosu, or the other junior brothers and junior sisters, all of them rejected me. I don't blame them. When I think of myself back then, I also want to slap myself a few times. But no matter what, I, Ling Xuanzi, regard Fangsuan Mountain as my home. In the depths of my heart, I will never harm my fellow disciples. Master knows this the best. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just suppressed me back then. Haha, do you think I talk a little too much? But I've been holding these words in my heart for a long time. Perhaps when a man is about to die, his words are kind. In the future, when you see other senior brothers and junior sisters, tell them that I, Ling Xuanzi, may be a scourge and a heinous person. I don't expect them to change their opinion of me, but in my heart, they are all my senior brothers and junior sisters. His voice gradually became lower. Lin Sun's heart was filled with mixed feelings. It was also at this time that he knew that the conceited 4th senior brother also felt guilty for the senior brothers and junior sisters of Fangsuan Mountain. He had really changed. Just as martial Uncle Kong Ju said, the years of being suppressed might have made 4th senior brother temper his mind and become different from before. Clang! The sonorous sword sound rang again, like the sound of soul locking from hell. At the moment when the sound rang, Ling Xuanzi was seriously injured. A sword qi tore his back, his skin and flesh were torn open, and blood flowed. He let out a muffled groan, but his eyes were still calm as he moved crazily with Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't know what terrible injuries Ling Xuanzi had suffered at the moment, but his heart was twitching fiercely, and unspeakable pain and hatred surged out. Who was it? Who on earth attacked again? Lin Sun turned his head, and his deep black eyes were full of madness, but he couldn't see the enemy. He could only see a flying sword floating in the distant universe. It was as black as ink, like a sharp blade condensed from darkness. Even though it was extremely far away, it still exuded a breathtaking and terrifying aura. Vaguely, there seemed to be a majestic figure standing behind the flying sword. Its power covered the starry sky, and it was unimaginably terrifying. Clang! The sword's sound rang again, and it was as cold as the wind, stirring the universe. Lin Sun's eyes were stinging, and he could no longer see anything. However, he could sense that Ling Xuanzi was injured once more, and a handful of boiling blood splattered onto his face. Fourth senior brother. Lin Sun's eyes widened when he saw that Ling Xuanzi's chest seemed to have been cut open from the back, and his body seemed to be on the verge of dispersing. His injuries were extremely serious. It's fine. This small injury isn't enough to kill me. Junior brother, look, we're almost at Chaotian City. Ling Xuanzi said softly, and his expression was calm. In the distance, the outline of Chaotian City appeared under the mysterious power of restriction. Even the terrifying fluctuations of the battle in the universe couldn't shake it at all. The mysterious power of restriction came from the spirit of order, Haotian. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared out of thin air and blocked Ling Xuanzi's path. It was a tall old man with snow-white hair and beard. He wore a feather robe, and his eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. His body flowed with the law of immortality. Fu Huaiqin. If it was those cultivators in Chaotian City, they would definitely recognize at a glance that this old man was an immortal figure of the Fu clan of the Eighth Heaven. Originally, this old man hoped to recruit you to the Fu clan, but unfortunately, you're from Mount Fangsuan. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Fu Huaiqin looked at Lin Sun and let out a long sigh. Scram! Ling Xuanzi shouted and took out the Tower of Ceaseless. He was practically putting his life on the line, and his power was extremely terrifying. Fu Huaiqin's sleeves fluttered, and a verdant mountain appeared between his fingers. It flowed with a unique aura of immortality, and it blocked the attack from afar. Ling Xuanzi was just about to continue when a sword chi swept over from behind and severed his left arm, causing blood to splatter. This attack caused Ling Xuanzi to stagger, and his aura almost dissipated. He was seriously injured, but even so, he still stubbornly stood in front of Lin Sun to protect him. Fu Huaiqin looked into the depths of the universe in the distance, and a hint of solemnity appeared in his eyes. That's the sword of judgment of the number one immortal giant, the Wang clan. Even if this old man didn't take action, you probably wouldn't have survived, Wang clan. The number one immortal giant. Sword of judgment. Lin Sun firmly remembered all of this, and his eyes turned red. He swore that if he could survive this time, one day he would return it tenfold, 100-fold. Little junior brother, looks like we can't go to Chaotian City. But it's said that the path to the eternal true world is behind Chaotian City. I'll send you off now. As he spoke, a burning light of the Tao surged out from Ling Xuanzi's body, and his essence, energy, and spirit seemed to have been ignited at this moment. With my spirit, form the seamless gate, an illusory gate suddenly appeared above Ling Xuanzi's head. Fu Huaiqin's face sank. The verdant mountain whistled through the sky and pressed down on space as it smashed towards Ling Xuanzi. Who would have thought that such a terrifying attack would actually be forcefully blocked by the burning light of the Tao around Ling Xuanzi's body, and it couldn't move an inch forward. With my blood, open the path of life and death. Ling Xuanzi's expression was solemn as an obscure Tao chant came from his lips. He was heavily injured and on the verge of death, but his handsome face was filled with calmness. Endless burning light of the Tao surged around him like an ocean. In an instant, it enveloped Lin Sun and threw him into the illusory gate. During this period of time, Lin Sun struggled and screamed in an attempt to stay, but it was to no avail. He could only watch helplessly as he was enveloped and disappeared into the illusory gate. Fourth senior brother, if you die, I'll make the 10 immortal giants die with you. Lin Sun screamed hysterically, and his heart was replaced by endless hatred. He watched helplessly as his fourth senior brother paid the price of his life just to open a path for him to live, and he didn't even have the strength to refuse. It was like countless sharp blades that tore his heart apart, making him feel like he was about to collapse. "Junior brother, if there's a next life, we'll meet again." Ling Xuanzi smiled faintly with a gratified expression, and then he waved his hand. Boom! The gate suddenly turned into a ray of light, tore through the universe, and disappeared. Even if Fu Huiqin tried to block it with all his might, he couldn't stop it, because Ling Xuanzi had paid the price of his life to obtain a chance of survival. Puff! In the next moment, a sword qi swept over from afar, piercing through Ling Xuanzi's figure, causing his body to explode completely at this moment, and blood rained all over the sky. Only his spirit survived by luck, but it was already on the verge of death. At this moment, he was as calm and composed as before. He clenched the 3,000 floating sinks and endless tower that were dyed red by his blood and murmured softly, "Master, I've always wanted to prove that my path is correct, but now, I don't have the chance to prove it to you." His spirit dimmed and became extremely illusory. His consciousness gradually became blurred. "Do you want to die like this? Impossible. I'm going to restrain your spirit and refine it into a treasure, so that you can neither live nor die." Seeing that Lin Sun was sent away under his nose, Fu Huiqin's face was extremely ugly. He urged the verdant mountain to envelop Ling Xuanzi's spirit that was on the verge of collapse and dissipation. Boom! The green light rain was like a tide. When it was about to suppress and imprison Ling Xuanzi's spirit, the endless tower that was dyed red by Ling Xuanzi's blood suddenly trembled at this moment. P.S. There will be more updates tonight. Chapter 2663. The endless pagoda flashed up silently, and the glow of the Tao it emanated spread out. Bang! The verdant rain of light that enveloped the sky suddenly exploded apart, and even the treasure on the mountain was shaken to the point of cracking apart like a spider web. Fu Huiqin was shocked, and he put away the treasure at the first possible moment while his expression was anxious and bewildered. Ling Xuanzi's consciousness was blurry. Even if he was on the verge of death, he couldn't help but ridicule when he saw this scene. "You can't even break through a single treasure. Old bastard! You're really trash." As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have realized something, and he suddenly raised his eyes to look at the endless pagoda. Clang! The piercingly cold sound of slaughter resounded once more, and a strand of sword qi suddenly arrived. The endless pagoda glowed, and at this extremely dangerous moment, it obliterated the strand of sword qi inch by inch. In the depths of the universe, where the black flying sword floated, a surprised voice resounded as well, and it seemed to be shocked by this scene. Right at this moment, Ling Xuanzi's eyes opened wide. A mighty figure surged out from within the endless pagoda, and he was bathed in the illusory glow of the Tao. As soon as he appeared, he was like a supreme overlord that had descended into the world, causing this expanse of the universe to fall into unprecedented terror. His aura was extremely mystical. It was neither Confucian nor Taoist, neither god nor devil, and it was extremely profound and indescribable. It was like the embodiment of the grand Tao that stood towering above the universe. Ling Xuanzi seemed as if he was struck by lightning, and he cried out involuntarily, "Master?" The mighty figure sighed lightly and said, "Ling Xuanzi, you've already overcome this tribulation. From today onward, you're still the fourth successor of the Heart Core." "Master, it's really you." Ling Xuanzi was like a child as he cried out uncontrollably. If his body was still here, he would have probably cried tears of excitement a long time ago. A very, very long time ago, his master was like a father in his heart. Even though he was suppressed for countless years, he had never felt hatred towards his master. He only wanted to prove himself to his master, and he yearned to obtain his master's acknowledgement. "Why lose your composure like this? Your actions today have completely exceeded my expectations. Now, Master will take you away. The mighty figure spoke as he lightly patted Ling Xuanzi on the shoulder. Instantly, Ling Xuanzi's soul that was about to dissipate condensed once more, and it radiated with an extremely surging vitality. Master, if I open the seamless gate, I'm worried that when Junior Brother heads to the eternal true world, he will. Ling Xuanzi remembered something and quickly said. The Master of the Heart Core's voice was calm, and it carried a secretive tone as it said, "It's fine. This is his final chance to attain rebirth. I can interfere in your matters, but I'm unable to interfere in his path towards the Tao. This tribulation should be resolved by him." You're the Master of the Heart Core? In the distance, Fu Huiqin, who'd been dumbstruck since a long time ago, cried out loudly, and her face was filled with disbelief. Didn't you commit a grave mistake back then? Didn't you die a long time ago? He couldn't calm down. A long time ago, the owner of the Heart Core passed through the 8th heaven and went to the 9th heaven alone, causing a sensation in the 8th heaven. The 10 immortal giants also wanted to stop him, but no one could because at that time, the Master of the Heart Core had already displayed a power that almost exceeded the immortal realm. He wasn't someone anyone could fight against. This matter was even seen as a humiliation to the 8th heaven. It was kept a secret and no one knew about it. If this matter were to spread, it would definitely damage the dignity of the 10 immortal forces. However, to everyone's surprise, it didn't take long for news to spread from the 9th heaven that the Master of the Heart Core had committed a grave mistake and encountered an unimaginable calamity. It was impossible for him to appear in the eternal true world again. This caused a stir among the 10 immortal giants. They believed that the Master of the Heart Core was destined to be killed by the eternal God race, and it was very likely that he had already fallen. Moreover, from that time onwards, the Master of the Heart Core had indeed never appeared again. Until now, people had almost forgotten about this matter. But Fu Huiqin never expected that at this moment, she would see this supreme figure who was like a legend again. Could it be that he didn't die back then? The Master of the Heart Core turned around, glanced at Fu Huiqin, and explained with rare patience, "I'm just a wisp of willpower. I don't know whether my main body is dead or not." Fu Huiqin was taken aback, and was at a loss for words. He couldn't help but sneer coldly, "Then I might as well tell you, your main body is already dead. It was killed by a big shot from the 9th heaven. **T. Even if your entire Fu family is dead, my master won't be harmed in the slightest." Ling Xuanzi cursed. In his heart, his master was like a father, and he couldn't be blasphemed. Believe it or not, it's up to you," Fu Huiqin said, turned around and left. He realized that something was wrong, and didn't dare to stay any longer. "You hurt my disciple, and you plan to leave just like that?" The Master of the Heart Core's calm voice came from behind, causing Fu Huiqin's body to stiffen. He ran even faster as if he was desperate. Chaotian City was not far away, and he didn't believe that the Master of the Heart Cores could still resist the great heaven order once he escaped into the city. However, even though his body was clearly moving, the void around him seemed to have frozen and stopped. No matter how he flew, he couldn't move even half a step. This scene made his forehead break out in cold sweat, and his soul almost jumped out of his body. In the future, there will be people who will deal with the 10 immortal giants. As for you, you should stay. In the indifferent voice, the Master of the Heart Core didn't move, but Fu Huiqin, who was far away, seemed to have suffered the most terrifying thing in the world. His mind suddenly collapsed, his soul collapsed, and even his body turned into dust that filled the sky. This scene caused Ling Xuanzi's eyes to widen. What kind of power is this? This is the power that transcends the immortal realm. As if seeing through Ling Xuanzi's thoughts, the Master of the Heart Core explained patiently, "In the future, when you reach the eternal true world, with your talent and foundation, you won't have to worry about not being able to reach this threshold. Master. Ling Xuanzi suddenly choked up, and the softness in the deepest part of his heart was touched. In the past, his master often taught and guided him like this, but he seemed to have never listened to it. Clang! In the depths of the universe, the floating black flying sword turned into a beam of light and was about to leave. The master of the heart core raised his head slightly, and his eyes were clear. The sword of judgment. The people of the Wang family are still as weak as before. They only dare to hide in the dark and attack. Without your protection, the assassins in the hidden void world who would resort to any means possible would not have survived until now. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and seized the air. In the distance, the black flying sword let out a hum and struggled fiercely, as if it had been grabbed. Its wail echoed through the universe. Master of the heart core, you only have a will left. Do you really want to break off relations with the Wang family? A cold shout rang out from the depths of the universe. If one looked closely, they would see an illusory gray figure standing there. It was as blurry as light, but its mighty presence covered the entire universe. I've been waiting for eternity. The heir I've been waiting for has come to the eternal true world. It's time to put an end to the grudges of the past. As he sighed softly, the master of the heart core waved his sleeve, and the tower of endless end shone and disappeared. The next moment, a shrill scream that shook the heavens rang out from the depths of the universe. Then, scarlet blood splattered everywhere. There was no doubt that the great man from the strongest immortal clan had been killed by the Tower of Endless End. Only the Sword of Judgment had taken the opportunity to disappear. Master, the treasure has escaped, Ling Xuanzi shouted. This treasure was born from the Dark Order. If my real body was here, I would have been able to subdue it. But with the power of the will imprinted in the Tower of Endless End, I'm still not strong enough. The master of the heart core's voice was casual. But it doesn't matter. This time, I just need to take you away. When he finished speaking, he reached out and the 3,000 floating sinks fell into his palm. Then, with a flick of his wrist, silver divine light filled the sky and swept towards different areas of the universe. Go! A loud shout resounded from the shadows, and then a figure that was bathed in peerlessly dazzling divine light charged out from the darkness like a ray of light with the intention of fleeing. But it was still halfway there when it was enveloped by the bright silver light of the Tao. No matter how it struggled, it was useless, and it was instantly incinerated by the silver divine radiance. When looked at from afar, it seemed as easy as killing an insect. But this scene caused Ling Xuanzi's heart to shake, and he was dazzled. That person was clearly a terrifying existence at the immortal realm, and it was even more formidable than Qi Kanghun and Qi Tianlin. However, it was utterly unable to resist a single attack from his master. Moreover, this was merely the strength of his master's will. Rumble! The universe roiled as the silver divine radiance swept out like a boundless river of stars. Every now and then, immortal figures would charge out, but they were enveloped by the silver divine radiance and completely obliterated before they could even get there. For a time, countless shrill cries resounded and shook the universe. On the other hand, only now did Ling Xuanzi suddenly notice that numerous immortal existences had been hiding in this universe since a long time ago, and he'd actually not noticed them at all. He couldn't help but be shocked by this, and he didn't dare imagine how severe the consequences would be if these immortal existences attacked together when he sent his junior brother away. Perhaps they think that great figure from the Wang clan alone is sufficient to kill me. Ling Xuanzi's expression flickered indeterminately. After a short while, the universe finally recovered its silence, and only the smell of blood suffused the air and couldn't be dispersed in a short period of time. It's time for us to leave as well. As he spoke, the core master held the horsetail whisk in one hand and the Tower of Ceaseless in the other, and he brought Ling Xuanzi's soul core with him as he walked towards the distance. Master, are you really not worried about little junior brother? Ling Xuanzi couldn't help but ask. It's useless even if he's worried. This tribulation must be dealt with by him himself. The so-called rebirth is rebirth amidst destruction and transcendence between life and death. Once you start to comprehend the Tao of destiny in the future, you'll understand the cause and effect within it. As he spoke, he'd brought Ling Xuanzi further and further away. Master, where do you want to take me? To the eternal true world, of course. If I'm not wrong, your senior and junior brothers should have already departed from the 6th heaven and headed to the 7th heaven. At that time, Ruosu will naturally tell you about the matter that the master and disciple of Mount Innerheart have been plotting for countless years. Master, so all of this was within your expectations? I don't have such great ability. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been unable to find out whether my main body is dead or alive all these years. Their conversation was still reverberating in the air when the master and disciple's figures had already vanished into the depths of the boundless universe. P.S. More updates and sent over. Chapter 2664. The universe was a scene of ruin. Many big stars had already collapsed and dissipated, and a faint smell of blood permeated the void. In Chaotian City, absolute silence, deathly stillness. Countless cultivators were shocked, and their eyes were in a trance. Since the opening of the god's secret realm, the events that happened in it had affected the mind of every cultivator in the city. It was also not long ago that people heard that in the Battle of the God's Relic, the forces of the 4 eastern royal clans from the 7th heaven were almost defeated by Lin Sun alone. Then, the rumor about Lin Sun caused a great sensation in the city like a great wave. In the battle of defending the arena, he killed Nan Tianba, Nan Tianjing, Nan Yongqiang, and the others, killing the powerhouses of the Nan clan. In the great hunt, Li Henshui and the other powerhouses of the Li clan were all killed by Lin Sun. And in the ascendant stage, Lin Sun became the chosen one, seized the primordial Dao tree, and killed Qi Lingyun, Zhongli Shao, Qi Pejuan, Lin Feng, Mu Yi and other nobles from the 8th heaven. Every one of his achievements was so bloody that it made people's hearts tremble. The entire Chaotian city was in a great uproar. Everyone was talking about his name on the streets, in the tea-houses, and in the pubs. No one thought that Lin Sun, a great emperor from the starry sky ancient path, could actually kill everyone in the god's relic, and no one dared to call themselves the emperor. But after the discussion, people all realized that, after this incident, when Lin Sun walked out of the god's relic, he would probably encounter a disaster. Sure enough, such a disaster happened. It was just that no one thought that this heaven-breaking catastrophe would end in such a way. First, the 4 immortals from the 4 eastern royal clans attacked, but they were all killed by Lin Sun's senior brother, Ling Xuanzi. Then, Qi Tianlin, Qi Kanghun, Mu Jiangshan, Dong Wangkong, and Zhongli Ju from the 8th heaven appeared together, but they were all killed by Kong Ju, who suddenly regained consciousness. Later on, Ling Xuanzi, the successor of the core dimension, was about to be killed. However, as the master of the core dimension's will appeared, the calamity vanished and was completely wiped out. Those scenes seemed so world-shocking. Even though the curtains to the battle in the universe had already been drawn, the cultivators in Chaotian City were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. Since ancient times, when had such a shocking battle ever taken place in the great thousand battle domain? Who had seen the terrifying scene of those undying beings falling like rain? And all of this was caused by Lin Sun. Who could have thought of this before? It was too unexpected. Mind Mountain. It turns out that Lin Sun is the successor of Mind Mountain. After a long time, someone sighed with emotion, breaking the deathly silence. Today's matter will probably cause a huge commotion in the eternal true world. After all, even the 8th heaven's 10 immortal giants have lost quite a number of great figures. No wonder Lin Sun is so unscrupulous and doesn't fear any big force at all. It turns out that he has something to rely on. We've all misjudged him. After this battle, if Lin Sun survives, his achievements in the future will probably reach unimaginable heights. The core dimension has reappeared, and chaos is about to rise. Chaotian City was in an uproar. Countless voices rang out, as if people were venting the shock that had been suppressed in their hearts for a long time. The entire city was in an uproar. "It's good that he's alive, it's good that he's alive." Cyan Sparrow also heard the news, and her extremely tense heart completely relaxed. She didn't care about the successor of the core dimension. She only knew that as long as Lin Sun was alive, that was the best outcome. "That's great." Lu Xiangchue was extremely excited. He and Xiang Xiayuan had arrived at Chaotian City earlier, and had been extremely nervous and anxious. It was only at this moment that he could finally relax. "Uncle, just how powerful is Mind Mountain?" Xiang Xiayuan's clear eyes rippled with extraordinary splendor. "No one can say for sure. Perhaps only the giants of the eighth heaven know how powerful Mind Mountain is," Lu Xiangchue said with emotion. "Mind Mountain. After this battle, no one in the eternal world would dare to underestimate Mind Mountain anymore, right?" In a tea-house, Yun Lu from the Little Thunder Temple in the Great Lane world frowned at this moment. Before Lin Sun came out of the God Legion secret realm, he had come to the conclusion that the Fang and Cun bloodline wouldn't die prematurely just like that. Everything that happened now proved that his conjecture was correct. But things were not as simple as he had expected. The reason was Lin Sun. Yun Lu did not expect that at the last moment, the willpower that belonged to the core dimension would only save Ling Xuanzi, and had no intention of interfering in Lin Sun's affairs. Variable. This lotus really corresponds to the number 50 great ways, 49 heavenly evolutions. If one of them escapes, who can see through it? At this moment, an indescribable admiration surged in Yun Lu's heart. He suddenly realized that it was precisely because of this variable, Lin Sun, that everything had become confusing and difficult to figure out. "However, isn't your Fangtsuan mountain worried that this lotus will wither away?" Yun Lu was puzzled. Even if he tried to deduce it by force, he could not find any clues. In the cold and dark void, Lin Sun was carried by a force and flew forward uncontrollably. His heart was full of bitterness and anger, but also unspeakable hatred. Because of him, the fourth senior brother paid the price of his life to fight for a chance of survival for him. How could Lin Sun not hate him? The Fu family, the Wang family, the Qi family, the Zhong family, the Mu family, in his mind, recalling the previous scenes, Lin Sun's eyes were bloodshot, and his chest was filled with monstrous hatred. "One day, I will pay them back tenfold, 100-fold. At this moment, Lin Sun did not know that Ling Xuanzi was not dead, nor did he know that the willpower left by the core dimension in the Tower of Endless had taken Ling Xuanzi away. Otherwise, his emotions might not be so out of control. Boom! Suddenly, a terrible explosion sounded as if the sky was falling and the earth was sinking. In the void far away, a big hand suddenly stretched out and grabbed towards the side. The big hand was big enough to cover the sky. Its 5 fingers were like pillars supporting the sky, and the palm was surging with unpredictable Taoist light. Compared with it, the stars seemed extremely small. Bang! The force wrapped around Lin Sun exploded directly, and his whole body was shaken and flew backward, coughing up blood. He suddenly looked up and saw in the distance, an old Taoist with a simple appearance walked out. His eyes were cold and terrible, and his body was surrounded by wisps of immortal Tao. It was Dishi, the evil god. Lin Sun's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. He did not expect that he would encounter such a terrible figure on the way to survival, which was exchanged by the fourth senior brother's life. "You can't escape, and your senior brother can't save you again." Dishi, who looked like an old Taoist, walked in the void and almost came to Lin Sun in the blink of an eye. He stared at Lin Sun. "In this damn place, no matter who comes, they can no longer change your fate of death." Lin Sun's body was stiff, and he immediately operated the abyssal sword cauldron, as if he was desperate to attack. Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron steamed with hundreds of millions of light, but before it could get close, it was flicked by Dishy's finger, and with a clang, it was sent flying. Under the impact, Lin Sun's blood was boiling, and he coughed up blood again. The difference in strength was so great that he almost had no power to resist. I was suppressed for 1,000,000 years in the last era, and I did not die because of it until the end of the era. Instead, I got a blessing in disguise, and dug out a glimmer of life in the suppression. Even if I have not recovered my previous strength, it is still easy for me to kill a little thing like you. Dishy's eyes were cold and full of contempt. I'll give you a chance. Obediently hand over the jade plate of fate and the primordial Tao tree, and I will give you a chance to rely on me. Worship me as your master and be at my command. Every word was like a thunder shaking the void. The pressure made Lin Sun almost stop breathing, and his body was severely suppressed, unable to move. But Lin Sun showed a sarcastic smile. I, Lin Sun, would rather die than worship an old thing who has been cuckolded as my master. Cuckolded? This word was like a knife that stabbed fiercely into the heart of the evil god Dishy, causing his old face to darken and his eyes to shoot out a terrifying light. You are really tired of living. He suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed Lin Sun's throat. Then, the huge power of his spiritual awareness rushed into Lin Sun's body like a storm. Lin Sun's body was stiff, and a painful expression appeared on his face. The spiritual awareness was so overbearing and terrible that it broke his cultivation and directly rushed to the imperial life world, which could not be resisted at all. Sure enough, it's here. In an instant, Dishy noticed the primordial Tao tree rooted in Lin Sun's imperial life world, and his eyes suddenly became fiery. With this treasure and the power of the immortal Tao in the jade plate of fate, I don't have to worry about not being able to restore my previous cultivation. At that time, this era will also surrender to me. As Dishy said, his spiritual awareness surged and swept towards the primordial Tao tree, and he was about to uproot the tree. Suddenly, a dark, sharp light appeared, and it emitted a terrifying aura as it fiercely pierced the divine sense. Boom! The spiritual awareness was smashed and exploded. Dishy suddenly let out a painful groan, showing a look of shock and anger. Obviously, he was caught off guard by this sudden accident. At this time, a terrible power woke up from Lin Sun's imperial life world, like the eternal darkness waking up from silence. Dishy seemed to feel something was wrong. He immediately withdrew his hand from Lin Sun's neck and stayed far away. At the same time, in the endless rain of dark light, a graceful and slender figure walked out of Lin Sun's body. She wore a black robe with the brim of a hat covering her face. Strands of dark rain of light were like multicolored flowing rainbows that coiled around her delicate and graceful figure, causing her to seem like a god that had walked out from the darkness, mysterious and terrifying. Dishy's eyes narrowed slightly. A woman? At the same time, Lin Sun also opened his eyes wide. Chapter 26:65. The dark light rain fell, and the slender figure was like a dream. She was still wearing a black robe, and the brim of the hat covered her face. Between her slender white fingers, she was holding a white bone spear with starlight flowing around it. Her aura was as quiet and mysterious as before. It was Xia Zhi. Many years ago, back in the deity Phoenix realm, Xia Zhi had fallen into extreme silence. At that time, she was worried that she was too weak and would become Lin Sun's burden. She couldn't tolerate this, because she was never willing and could never tolerate standing behind Lin Sun and becoming a sheltered character. All these years, she had been sleeping in Lin Sun's imperial life realm. Just like what Lin Sun said, treasures could be destroyed, but only if Lin Sun died would his imperial life realm be destroyed. But Lin Sun didn't expect that the disaster he encountered today would wake Xia Zhi up, making her walk out of her silence and appear in front of him again. An indescribable sense of guilt and anxiety surged in Lin Sun's heart, and he shouted almost immediately, "Go, go!" Dishy's power made even Ling Xuanzi, the fourth senior brother, afraid. This was definitely a terrifying existence that could threaten the immortal realm. If Xia Ji was implicated by him and lost her life here, Lin Sun didn't want to see that. Lin Sun, I'm different from before. Xia Ji stood in front of Lin Sun. Her slender figure didn't move at all, like a natural moat. Her clear voice floated in the air, revealing calmness and calmness. What's different? Do you know who he is? Lin Sun said decisively. As he spoke, he looked at Dishi Xiexin. Let her go, and I'll give you the jade plate of fate and the primordial Dao tree. Otherwise, I promise I'll destroy these two treasures immediately. His expression was firm and ruthless. In Xia Ji's world, only Lin Sun could stay. And in Lin Sun's heart, Xia Ji's life was more important than anything in this world. What jade plate of fate, the primordial Dao tree, as long as Xia Ji was alive, Lin Sun wouldn't frown even if he died now. Dishi Xiexin saw all this and said with a strange expression, For a woman, is it worth it? Cut the crap. Do you agree or not? Lin Sun's face was cold. He stepped forward and tried to protect Xia Ji behind him. To his surprise, Xia Ji put her spear horizontally in front of Lin, not allowing him to come forward. She said calmly, The current you is no match for me. If you dare to step forward again, I will suppress you. Lin Sun widened his eyes and almost laughed out of anger. Was this girl crazy? How many years had he been cultivating? How dare he talk to him like this? She's right. Compared to you, she has a threatening aura that even I can't figure out. Otherwise, do you think I would just stand by and watch the two of you flirt right under my nose? Dishi Evil God looked at Lin Sun with eyes full of contempt. Lin Sun was stunned and looked at Xia Ji again. After calming down, he found that Xia Ji's breath was obscure, cold and mysterious, which made him unable to see through her cultivation. This seemed very unusual. Could it be that in these years of silence, Summer Solstice's cultivation had reached a level that even he could not understand? It was incredible. Interesting. Your cultivation base clearly hasn't reached the immortal realm, but the power in your body makes me feel an invisible threat. Could it be that there's a taboo power hidden in your body that no one knows about? Dishi looked at Xia Ji with a strange light flowing in his eyes, as if he wanted to see through the secrets of Xia Ji's body and mind. Clang! Without hesitation, Xia Ji waved her spear and stabbed it out. The spear with starlight flowing on it seemed to be able to penetrate the sky. It was swift and fierce. Wisps of immortal Tao emerged in front of Dishi and condensed into a sword to block this blow. Clang! The collision between the two was like a thunder, and the nearby starry sky suddenly set off violent, destructive waves. In the splashing turbulence, Xia Ji's figure staggered back a few steps, but at the same time, she kept Lin Sun firmly behind her. Oh, sure enough, your cultivation is not enough at all. I'd like to see what kind of power you have that can threaten me. Dishi stepped forward, his sleeves fluttered, and countless immortal Tao laws emerged, turning into bright immortal swords. Every single sword strike was covered in unfathomable profundities, and it was formidable to an unprecedented extent. It was sufficient to cause even eternal figures to fear it. Lin Sun didn't doubt at all that if it was him, he wouldn't be able to block this sword at all. And all of this proved that what the fourth brother said at the beginning was right. The biggest threat is not the immortal beings of the 4 East Imperial clans, nor the immortal beings from the 8th heaven. It's the evil god Dishi. Clang! Xia Ji's black robe fluttered, the spear in her hand surged, and in an instant countless light shadows appeared, like a circle of starlight torrent, covering the sky and the earth. This kind of power is far less powerful than Dishi Evil God, but Lin Sun keenly noticed that Xia Ji's attack carried a trace of obscure and mysterious taboo aura. It was a mysterious power beyond imagination, like an unfathomable taboo, so that her attack was covered with a completely different layer of threat. Boom! This starry sky was tumbling, the tsunami-like battle torrent swept and spread, and the ancient stars were destroyed into powder in an instant, dissipating into nothingness. Lin Sun was sheltered behind Xie Ji. Although he was not affected by the aftermath of the battle, just looking at it made him feel suffocated. Puff! In the smoke and dust, Xie Ji's figure trembled slightly, and blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. Although she blocked this wave of killing, it was obvious that she was also affected and injured. This made Lin Sun's heart tighten. Is this the power of fate? At this moment, Dishi seemed to be greatly stimulated, his voice trembled, and his eyes were filled with uncontrollable burning desire. In his eyes, at this moment, Xie Ji was like a first-class peerless treasure in the world. It made his Taoist heart uncontrollably produce a crazy desire to possess her. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed slightly. Fate? Was the obscure and mysterious taboo power in Xie Ji's body related to the law of fate? Let's go. Xie Ji suddenly raised her hand, grabbed Lin Sun's arm, tore the sky, and moved away. Want to go? Impossible. At this moment, Dishi seemed to be crazy. He laughed up to the sky and waved his hand. Boom! In the distance, the starry sky tumbled, and countless immortal Tao laws as thick as chains emerged, condensing into a terrible territory, covering Xie Ji and Lin Sun. There was no way to retreat, no way to escape. With the jade plate of fate, the primordial Tao tree, and the power of fate, I won't worry about not being able to stand on the eternal world and break the barrier of the change of the era. In the laughter, Dishi appeared out of thin air. He was like an old Taoist, but at this moment, his eyes were blazing and terrible. His whole body was bathed in the waterfall-like immortal Tao glory, and his power was so great that it shocked the starry sky. Boom! He stretched out his hand and grabbed, an unparalleled sword qi burst out from his fingertips, covering Xie Ji. Xie Ji seemed very calm from beginning to end, or in other words, since a long time ago, she didn't care about life and death at all, so why should she be afraid? In the face of this attack, an expanse of profound and mysterious light rose from her graceful and slender body, and it was faintly like a river of destiny was surging and flowing within it. Hiss! The spear that flowed with starlight flashed out like a violent storm, and it dealt with Dishi's attacks one by one. Every single strike was so profound and supreme, and it was filled with an inconceivable aura. Dishi wasn't shocked, but delighted instead, and his gaze grew even more blazing. He utilized his ultimate technique like an ancient evil god, and every single move he made rumbled with immortal light that surged through the heavens and the earth. He was too terrifying. Even if Xie Ji had utilized that taboo energy, it was still defeated and disintegrated by him one by one. It wasn't long before Xie Ji coughed up blood repeatedly during the battle. At this moment, Lin Sun finally noticed that Xie Ji's control of that taboo energy was obviously extremely lacking, and every time she utilized it, she had to pay an extremely great price. That was simply no different than harming her own cultivation. In the end, her fair and translucent skin cracked with strands of bloodstains. Obviously, she was enduring extremely great pressure. But she didn't take a step back. She kept standing there with a murderous, cold, and silent expression, and she seemed as if she didn't care at all that her injuries were becoming more and more serious. Lin Sun's pupils were bloodshot, and his chest was about to explode with hatred. Before, the fourth senior fellow apprentice would rather pay the price of his life to open a way for him to survive. Now Xie Ji was the same. This made Lin Sun's Taoist heart unstable, and it was filled with a kind of anger that was about to make him crazy. Little girl, this kind of power is not something you can control at all. You'd better leave it to me to keep it safe. Ah! As Dishi said, he held his hands in front of him, and a black sword qi was condensed between his 10 fingers. Boom! When this sword was just condensed, the starry sky fell into a collapsing scene of destruction, as if it couldn't bear the power of this sword. With Dishi's sword, the indescribable murderous spirit even reflected the terrible scene of doomsday and the collapse of all the heavens. Undoubtedly, This was the most powerful blow of Dishi, and he wanted to suppress Xia Ji in one fell swoop. As if she'd realized how terrifying this strike was, numerous dense and obscure shackles floated up into appearance on Xia Ji's graceful figure, and they were suffused with a mysterious and supreme aura that belonged to destiny, causing them to seem like the shackles of destiny. Her body was glowing, and blood was gurgling from the corners of her lips, as if she was burning her life. Bang! One of the chains suddenly broke and turned into a terrible taboo force, pouring into Xia Ji's spear, and then she stabbed it fiercely at the first time. Vaguely, the spear seemed to be entangled with the cause and effect of fate, like the spear of fate. Even if I die, I'll die with you. Lin Sun, who had long been filled with anger and hatred, also attacked desperately like a madman at this moment. In front of him, a vast expanse of white time suddenly burst out. Forbidden time. The taboo force imprinted with the mystery of time. At this moment, the whole starry sky suddenly fell silent. Time and fate met and collided at this moment, as if it was arranged by fate, producing an incredible scene. P.S. Continue to update tonight. Asking for monthly vote. Chapter 2666. Time flowed by while destiny was like a river that interweaved together. This expanse of the starry sky seemed to have fallen into a strange cycle of reincarnation, and everything revealed the scene of withering, falling into oblivion, and being obliterated. Dish felt an expanse of whiteness appear before his eyes, and indescribable terror surged out from his body and mind. The energy of time and destiny was like a torrent that carried him into the unknown abyss of space and time. Light flowed before his eyes as numerous scenes appeared. They were everything he'd experienced in the past, the excitement and joy he felt when he stepped onto the path of cultivation, the joy and boldness he felt when he broke through every single time, the hardships and dangers he experienced when he attained the Tao, the joys and sorrows of the past, the enmity and blood enmity of the past, the friends and enemies that had passed away. Scene after scene flashed before his eyes, and then they withered, shattered, and vanished without a trace. When he saw a beautiful figure that was beautiful like a painting flash out, Dish felt suffocated, and he struggled desperately with the intention of grabbing onto her. However, this scene was mercilessly destroyed and vanished. No! Dish held his head as he cried out loudly, and his expression was filled with pain. That was the woman he loved the most. But right at this moment, he noticed that everything related to that woman seemed to have been erased from his memories. Her name, likes, nature, and even voice, appearance, and everything else was actually impossible to remember. In the end, his expression was filled with bewilderment, and the pain in his heart had vanished as well. It was as if everything from before hadn't existed at all. Those scenes were still appearing before his eyes, passing, withering, and dispersing. The terror in Dish's heart grew stronger and stronger instead. He'd already noticed that those scenes that had vanished were the experiences and memories that he originally possessed. Yet now, they were being deprived and destroyed by a terrifying force. Why? Dish struggled madly and howled like a wild beast. This was too terrifying. It was like he'd fallen into the abyss of space and time. Everything he possessed in the past and present had vanished from his body, and even his cultivation, lifespan, memories, wisdom, mind, and the grand Tao that he'd diligently pursued for countless years, they were ceaselessly dissipating. It seemed like countless years had passed, yet it also seemed like only an instant had passed. Everything before his eyes had vanished. It was still that expanse of the starry sky, cold, silent, and vast. Dish stood there staring blankly, and his expression was filled with bewilderment. Then, he saw a man and a woman. The woman was dressed in a black robe and had a graceful figure. Even though the brim of her hat covered her face, she still gave off a soul-stirring and mysterious beauty. She was coughing up blood. The man gasped for breath, his face pale and translucent. His aura was weak and his eyes were dim. At this moment, their gazes were locked onto him, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you and where is this place?" His voice was young and tender. How did he become like this? Summer Solstice stared at the evil god Tishi, who had turned into a child, and asked after a long time, "Isn't that even better?" Lin soon took a deep breath and said in a hoarse voice with pleasure, "An old bastard has lost his memory, cultivation and lifespan. He has been traced back to his childhood. I'm afraid he doesn't even know who we are now." His eyes were strange and filled with shock. If he wasn't wrong, then this was the unimaginable power produced by the fusion of the mysteries of time and destiny. It was like the torrent of fate that reversed the flow of time, stripped away one's cultivation and memories, and forced one into a state before one cultivated the Tao. This was no different from the taboo power. This reminded Lin soon of the third stage talent of the Lord of Tongtian, the Blade of Time. A long time ago, Luo Tongtian had beaten Wei Mingzi back to his youth with this kind of talent, and his cultivation also fell to that of his youth. That kind of talent could reverse time and cut off one's cultivation. It was incredible! However, unlike the Blade of Time, the power Lin Sun and Xia Ji displayed just now not only reversed time and cut off Dishi's cultivation, but also deprived Dishi's memory, experience, and wisdom, making Dishi truly return to the time when he was a child without all the previous memories and experiences. Like a landscape painting with splashes of ink, all ink marks were completely erased, and Dishi became a piece of white paper again. This was undoubtedly related to the power of destiny. How could Lin Sun not be shocked by this? Time and destiny were grand daos that were taken to be supreme taboos. It was said that only those who had a glimpse of eternity and understood the law of destiny could stand above all Tao, have insight into the flow of time, and understand the mystery of the rise and fall of an era. But now, his talent was related to the law of time, and Xia Ji's body was branded with the shackles of the law of fate. One time, one fate. At this critical moment of life and death, they helped them to defeat the evil god Dishi. All of this seemed incredible. It should be known that Tishi, who had killed many immortals, could not withstand the taboo power intertwined with time and destiny to defeat the powerful Tishi. "Can you send me home?" Tishi, who was like a child, felt fear and dread at this moment. He was about to cry. He was really no different from an ignorant child. "Go home?" Lin Sun stepped forward, rubbed Tishi's little head, and asked with a strange look in his eyes, "Kid, let me ask you first, what's your name? Where do you live?" "My name is Gooden, and I live in the big locust tree village on the 7-mile slope," Tishi said timidly. "Gooden?" Lin Sun's lips twitched, and he almost couldn't help laughing. Tishi, who was such a powerful and terrible existence, was called Gooden when he was a child? "Do you know who I am?" Lin Sun asked. Tishi shook his head and mumbled, "I don't know." Lin Sun explored his body with his spiritual awareness and found that it was indeed a pure child's body without any cultivation. If he wanted, he could kill him with a single thought. However, in the face of such a Tishi, Lin Sun couldn't be cruel to him. After all, he was a child who had been deprived of everything he had in the past. "Gooden, when we leave, can I take you with me?" Lin Sun said. Tishi was about to cry. "I just want to go home, big brother, please take me home." Lin Sun sighed in his heart, waved his sleeve, put the child Tishi into the abyssal sword cauldron, and fell into a deep sleep. "When I arrive at the eternal world, I will find a home for him," Lin Sun made a decision. At this moment, Summer Solstice's figure shook and seemed to be unable to support herself. Lin Sun's heart tightened, and he immediately stepped forward and held her in his arms. But his tentacles were stained with blood. Only then did Lin Sun notice that Summer Solstice's skin covered by the black robe had countless cracks like a spider's web, which had long been soaked with blood. Lifting the brim of her hat, Lin Sun's picturesque face was even more pale and bloodless, and there was still blood flowing from the corners of her lips. "Summer Solstice." Lin Sun's heart trembled, and he felt a sharp pain. His face changed dramatically. I'm fine. I just broke a shackle in my body by force and got a little injured. Summer Solstice wiped the blood stains from the corners of her lips and said quietly. Her voice was still as clear and ethereal as the sounds of nature, but her clear eyes had long been gray. It was obvious that her desperate attack that seemed to have ignited her own body had actually caused her to suffer extremely serious injuries. How can you call this fine? Lin Sun's heart was filled with unspeakable guilt and pity. He held Summer Solstice tightly in his arms. It's my incompetence. Even though I have been cultivating for so long, I still can't protect you well by my side. His voice was low, full of deep self-blame. From his youth to the present, Summer Solstice had blocked many fatal attacks for him. But what about himself? Even if he had the cultivation of Zhu Xiong Emperor, he still seemed so weak. He even had to let Summer Solstice risk her life for him and get injured for him. All of this was like a knife stabbing into Lin Sun's heart, making his eyes red. Lin Sun, I did it willingly. Summer Solstice said seriously. For me, it's a matter of course. You don't do this again. She noticed that Lin Sun's state of mind was not right, which made her feel unspeakably uncomfortable. She didn't want Lin Sun to blame himself for her. She really didn't want to. What is a matter of course? You willingly? I can't do it. Lin Sun took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. Do you remember what I said in Nirvana? If we fight, let's fight together. If we die, let's die together. You can't act tough like you did today, do you understand? Summer Solstice stared at Lin Sun for a moment, then lowered her head and said, Lin Sun took out many rare elixirs and handed them to Summer Solstice, saying, Heal your wounds first. I'll protect you. It's useless. My wounds are related to the power of the shackles in my body. I can only resolve and heal them by myself, Summer Solstice said softly. Just eat them. Even if they can't heal your wounds, they won't hurt you, Lin Sun said grumpily. Summer Solstice took the elixirs and swallowed them one by one. She would obey Lin Sun's words. Seeing this, Lin Sun was relieved. He took out some elixirs and began to swallow them. Since he fled in the universe outside Chaotian City until now, he'd successively utilized the Forbidden Passage technique 3 times, causing his cultivation to be completely exhausted and weak to the extreme. Now that he relaxed, he couldn't take it anymore. In the starry sky, the two of them leaned against each other like fish in difficult times. They both felt unprecedentedly calm and secure. After going through all kinds of hardships and dangers, they could realize how hard it was to get this tranquility. After a long time, Lin Sun had recovered most of his cultivation. But what worried him was that although the cracks on Summer Solstice's body had healed, her breath was still extremely weak. Her eyes were dim, as if she had lost her spirit. There was a lingering gray color on her pale and beautiful face. Summer Solstice, let me have a look at your internal injuries. Lin Sun made a decision. He didn't believe that the Taoist injuries caused by the so-called shackles of fate couldn't be cured. As he said, his spiritual awareness swept into Summer Solstice's delicate body. More updates for you. Chapter 2667. As his divine awareness probed into her body, Lin Sun was keenly aware that there was an extremely obscure and mysterious power in the depths of her wounds. This mysterious power was extremely terrifying. It was like a series of chains hiding inside her body, firmly shackling her life essence. Lin Sun knew that this was the taboo power of fate. Fate was the most mysterious and obscure. It could bear the weight of the great Tao and promote cultivators to transform again and again. The essence of a living being's life was called numerology, which was also regarded as fate. The so-called fortune-telling was to infer numerology and survey the fate, so as to see the life path of this life. However, this fortune-telling technique was only useful for ordinary people. In the eyes of cultivators, the power of life was the most obscure and mysterious, just like the way of heaven. The transformation and breakthrough in the realm that cultivators diligently pursued were, in fact, the transformation and sublimation of their own lives. It was precisely because of these transformations that the lives of martial cultivators were filled with variables. It was almost impossible to deduce the fate of martial cultivators and determine their fate. In short, all the changes related to life could be called the way of fate. Now Lin Sun had long known that the way of fate, like the way of time, was the most mysterious and unfathomable supreme way in the world. But in Xia Zhi's body, the law of fate was like a shackle, covering her life source, which was undoubtedly incredible. Why does Xia Zhi have such a taboo power? And it's like a shackle, confining her life source. It doesn't seem to be an innate talent at all. Instead, it seems to be sealed in her body. Lin Sun's expression suddenly became uncertain. The origin of Xia Zhi had always been a mystery. A long time ago, Lin Sun had explored many times, trying to find some truth. But so far, he had found nothing. He only knew that it couldn't be a coincidence that Xia Zhi appeared in Feiyun village and met him. Could it be that a powerful figure who can control the law of fate once usurped Xia Zhi's fate? Lin Sun couldn't calm down. For the first time in these years, he noticed the abnormal situation in Xia Zhi's body, which also made him unable to calm down. If someone really sealed the law of fate in Xia Zhi's body, who was it? How terrifying the cultivation of a being who could control the law of fate should be. The more he thought about it, the more surprised he was. After a long time, Lin Sun got rid of distractions, calmed his mind, and continued to sense with his spiritual awareness. Soon, he made new discoveries. Xia Zhi was indeed seriously injured, and her internal condition was extremely bad. But Lin Sun could sense that the law of fate, which was entangled in Xia Zhi's life origin like a chain, was flowing into her limbs and bones at this moment. Her damaged body and serious injuries silently soaked in the nourishment of this life force, undergoing minute repairs. This discovery amazed Lin Sun, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Xia Zhi didn't lie. Such a serious injury could be repaired and healed by herself without the help of external forces. Perhaps the energy of the laws of destiny that are like shackles is an inexhaustible treasury to her. It's capable of allowing her to cultivate in silence, and it's also capable of allowing her to undergo rebirth and transformation when she's heavily injured and on the verge of death. At this moment, Lin Sun vaguely understood. Over the years, summer solstice had fallen into silence many times. Every time she fell into silence, her combat power would achieve a transformation by leaps and bounds. All this was very likely related to the law of fate. Lin Sun didn't touch the shackle-like law of fate, which was so obscure and mysterious that he didn't dare to perceive it easily. Withdrawing his spiritual awareness, Lin Sun couldn't help asking, "Xia Zhi, do you remember where you came from?" Xia Zhi was silent for a moment and shook her head. "I've thought about it many times over the years, but I can't remember it anymore." After a pause, she continued, "I have a hunch that when I completely break and refine those shackles in my body, I'll be able to wake up to all the past things." Lin Sun nodded and said, "I also have a hunch that it's not a coincidence that we met. Your origin may be related to me. But no matter what, I will help you find the answer in the future." Xia Zhi raised her clear eyes, looked at Lin Sun seriously, and said, "It doesn't matter. As long as you are by my side, it's enough." Lin Sun felt warm in his heart. He held Xia Zhi tightly in his arms and said, "As long as you don't leave, no one in this world can take you away from me." A smile arose on the corners of Xia Zhi's mouth, and her pale and beautiful face glowed with a different kind of expression, causing the starry sky to dim. But the next moment, her body stiffened, and she suddenly stood up from Lin Sun's arms. Looking at the starry sky in the distance, a pair of delicate crescent black eyebrows gradually wrinkled. "Lin Sun, it's time for us to go." Xia Zhi got up and held the white-boned spear tightly in her palm. Her aura was cold and murderous. Is there an enemy? Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly. Xia Ji whispered, It's an alien beast. Do you remember the world I entered after leaving the ancient Desolation territory? Lin Sun thought for a moment and remembered that in the Sea of Stars in the ancient Desolation territory, Xia Ji had left alone and entered a mysterious portal that emerged in the sky. Later, he learned that the portal was located in the most dangerous place in the Dark World, the Last Days Impasse, also known as the Source of Disaster. Xia Ji had fought alone in that world for many years, and the enemy she killed was the alien beast that swept from the depths of the boundless starry sky. Lin Sun was no stranger to alien beasts. When he left Xiao Empire for the first time in his youth, he met an unimaginably huge alien beast in the star-shifting formation. In the following years, he met that alien beast again on his way from the ancient Desolation territory to the ancient way of the starry sky. In the nirvana of freedom, that alien beast attacked again and even mobilized countless alien beasts to attack Lin Sun together, which caused great danger and trouble to Lin Sun. In the end, it was the willpower of the owner of the square inch that killed the alien beast in one fell swoop. But Lin Sun didn't expect that in this completely strange starry sky, such an alien beast would chase after him again. Let's go. Summer Solstice immediately took action and moved forward. Lin Sun couldn't help but ask, Xia Ji, you've fought against these alien beasts for many years. Do you know who sent them? Years ago, I heard Chun Linkong talking to a man named Golden Cicada. They said that these alien beasts came from the eternal world, Xia Ji said casually. And a long time ago, my intuition told me that they came for you. You fought in the Last Days Impasse to help me stop them? Lin Sun was shocked. Xia Ji nodded. For a moment, Lin Sun was in a complicated mood. It turned out that Xia Ji had been fighting for him since he was in the ancient Desolation territory. But which part of the eternal world did those alien beasts come from? Could it be the Luo family? Impossible. How could an immortal emperor who controlled the 8th rank of the Earth rank control so many terrifying alien beasts? If they came for him, what did they want? Lin Sun had all kinds of doubts. Vaguely, he realized that it might have something to do with his talent and the heaven accessing place. That was the only way to explain it. Rumble. While they were moving, a muffled tremor came from the distant starry sky. It was as if a great army was charging towards them from the depths of the universe. Lin Sun and Xia Ji were just about to change their direction when a rumble that sounded like muffled thunder came from the depths of the starry sky in all directions. For a time, the vast starry sky seemed to be in turmoil. A ruthless, cold, and terrifying aura surged over from different parts of the starry sky like a tide. They could vaguely see the silhouettes of gigantic black shadows emerging from the depths of the starry sky. They were like floating continents and they were flying towards them. Shockingly, it was innumerable cosmos beasts. Every single one of them was enormous like a mountain and possessed violent and savage auras. Merely their scarlet-red pupils were like the sun and moon, and they emanated a horrifying bloody glow. The aura of these guys is obviously different from before. Xia Ji acutely noticed that something was different. A long time ago, she had killed countless alien beasts. The alien beasts she had encountered at that time were not as powerful as the ones she saw today. They are indeed different. Although they are not in the Emperor realm, they are covered with a unique, ruthless aura. They are not inferior to those in the Emperor realm. Lin Sun spread out his divine sense and also felt the difference. He had fought side by side with Xia Ji on the Great Wall of Nirvana Heaven and killed countless alien beasts that rushed towards them. But compared to them, the alien beasts he had seen in the past were not as powerful as the ones he saw today. Lin Sun even noticed some extremely terrifying auras that were not inferior to those of the Emperor Ancestor realm in the world. This was simply too shocking. It should be known that the Emperor Ancestor realm was a first-class overlord in the eternal world. They were only second to the immortal realm. But there was an aura that was comparable to the Emperor-Ancestor realm in this army of alien beasts, and they could even form such a huge army. If this happened in the eternal world, it would definitely be a disaster. And if such an army of alien beasts was sent here by someone, how shocking would the power of the person behind it be? As long as it is not the immortal realm, there is no need to worry. Let's go. Charge forward and kill our way through. Lin Sun did not dare to think too much and made his decision immediately. The abyssal sword cauldron flew up and shone with billions of rays of light, bathing him and Xia Ji in it. Then, the two of them turned into two swift rays of light and rushed towards the distant galaxy. This was an unfamiliar universe. Based on what his fourth senior brother, Ling Xuanzi, had said at that time, they would be able to reach the eternal true world through this path of survival. But Lin Sun did not know how to get there. But at this time, he could not care so much. He had to kill his way out of the encirclement. Chapter 2668. In the starry sky, blood splashed and roars shook the sky. Puff, puff, puff. In the dense roar of fighting, huge bodies of alien beasts exploded from time to time. Blood splashed like rain and filled the sky. In the dense army of alien beasts, Lin Sun's abyssal sword cauldron floated above his head, flowing with hundreds of millions of rays of light, wrapping him and Xia Ji. They almost pushed all the way and opened a bloody road. Wherever they passed, there were broken corpses, splashing blood, and painful roars. These alien beasts were indeed more powerful and terrible than those he had seen before. The weakest one was comparable to an Emperor Realm practitioner, and some powerful ones were even not inferior to the Emperor Ancestor. Any Emperor Realm cultivator in this world would feel despair under such a siege. But to Lin Sun, no matter how many of them there were, they were not a threat. With his current cultivation, he could even easily kill Juetian Emperor Ancestor, so it was as easy as tearing a painting to deal with ordinary Emperor Realm characters. What's more, although these alien beasts were comparable to the Emperor Realm, they were not real practitioners after all. They had no wisdom, only the instinct of killing. This made Lin Sun more relaxed in the battle. In less than a quarter of an hour, he broke out of the encirclement and flew far away in the starry sky. From beginning to end, he did not encounter any real threat. Whoosh! However, soon after Lin Sun got out of trouble, a strange cyan streamer swept over from a distance. Wherever it passed, the starry sky was torn open like a ravine. Looking at the cyan streamer, it was a cyan bone saber with a unique shape, like a crescent, and its blade was flowing with frightening cold light. Lin Sun's pupils shrank, and he resisted with Abyssal Sword Cauldron. When the two collided, Abyssal Sword Cauldron was shaken away, whining constantly. Puff! Being implicated, Lin Sun coughed up a mouthful of blood. The power of immortality! His face darkened, and he realized that the power of the cyan bone saber had exceeded the scope of the Emperor Realm. Whoosh! In the harsh whistling sound, the cyan light splashed, and the bone saber chopped again, as fast as lightning, full of unpredictable killing intent. Lin Sun's spirit was burning, and he exhausted all his strength to resist. Clang! Clang! Dang! The deafening sound of collision resounded. Although every blow was blocked by the Abyssal Sword Cauldron, Lin Sun's chi was disordered under the impact of the terrifying power. He coughed up blood repeatedly and his face turned pale. This wasn't something normal undying beings could compare to. It wasn't any weaker than Dong Wang Kong and Qi Kanghun. The most terrible thing was that Lin Sun hadn't seen the person who used the cyan bone saber until now. A strong sense of crisis came to Lin Sun's mind. Let me. Xia Ji suddenly made her move, and the white bone spear that was flowing with starlight pierced out. With a clang, the cyan bone saber, which had injured Lin Sun heavily, was shattered and exploded in the void at this moment. But Lin Sun noticed that Xia Ji, who was already seriously injured, was bleeding from her lips again, which made his heart tighten. He shouted, "Don't use the power in your body anymore." Xia Ji didn't care. She grabbed Lin's arm and moved forward quickly. Boom! Suddenly, a black rui descended and smashed down fiercely. Xia Ji didn't dodge, and he swept the white bone spear in his hand out. The black rui was shattered again, and it turned into a rain of light in the void. In the starry sky far away, a light and bewildered voice resounded. Lin Sun didn't care about this. He only saw that Xia Ji's body started to crack and bleed again, which made him furious. "Is there no end to it?" he roared, and his voice shook the starry sky. His hair was disheveled, and his expression became ferocious. Since leaving the god's relic until now, Qi Tianlin, Qi Kanghun and the other 3 undying beings had joined hands to kill them. When they finally killed them, the Wang family, the number 1 undying being, came with the Sword of Judgment. He caused Martial Uncle Kong Ju to be seriously injured, and even 4th senior brother had to pay with his life to open a way for him. But all of this wasn't over. In this strange starry sky, evil god Dish had schemed and caused him and Xia Ji to be seriously injured, and then defeated him completely. After a short period of peace, the army of alien beasts covered the sky and the earth. Until now, he didn't even know who the enemy was. Only a cyan bone saber and a black rui made him and Xia Ji fall into a dangerous situation again. All of this seemed to be endless, and the killing intent came one after another. How could Lin Sun not be angry, hateful, and crazy? What answered Lin Sun was a golden divine seal, which appeared out of thin air like a dazzling sun and pressed down fiercely. Boom! It was still Xia Ji who smashed the golden divine seal, but her injuries became more and more unbearable. Her body was soaked in blood and seemed to be about to fall apart. But at the same time, a slender silver hairpin suddenly appeared and fiercely stabbed toward Summer Solstice's back. This scene made Lin Sun's eyes bleed. The unprecedented anger stimulated him like lava, and his whole body seemed to be burning. He rushed out desperately. Puff! The silver hairpin pierced through his back, bringing with it boiling hot blood. Xia Ji suddenly looked back and saw such a scene. For a moment she was stunned, as if she couldn't believe it and couldn't accept it. Lin Sun looked down at the bloody hole in his chest, and then raised his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Xia Ji, go! Go!" His consciousness became blurred. The power contained within the silver hairpin was too terrifying. Not only did it penetrate his body, but it also wreaked havoc within his body, destroying his vitality. "I will kill them all." A cold voice full of endless hatred echoed in Lin Sun's vague consciousness. He was shocked and tried to wake himself up. Then he saw a scene that he would never forget. A series of obscure and mysterious shackles emerged from Xia Ji's graceful figure, surging out at this moment like the long river of fate. "Ah!" She raised her head and let out a voice full of endless grief and anger. Then, the dazzling white flame suddenly spread like a storm. The vast starry sky, the endless void, and the vast stars all collapsed, withered, sank, and died at this moment. It was like a universe was about to collapse and perish. And Xia Ji's figure became the source of destruction. At this moment she was so sad and angry, as if she wanted to destroy everything in front of her. No, a shrill cry resounded, and a figure hiding in the shadows was swept by the white flames. In an instant, the figure vanished into thin air, as if his fate had been taken away. Following that, similar screams rang out incessantly. Lin Sun saw immortal divine light rising and trying to escape from this starry sky, but it was swallowed up by the white flame in a flash and disappeared. He saw a man in a splendid robe, who was like a god, struggling in the white flame with a face full of fear, and disappeared in a flash. However, these scenes began to become blurred. Boundless pain surged into Lin Sun's consciousness, making everything in front of him fall into darkness. Vaguely, anxious and hesitant voices rang out, but they gradually became blurred and ethereal. In the end, all perception disappeared. In the universe that seemed to be in destruction, A graceful figure drenched in blood, carrying a person on her back, charged forward like a madman, unceasingly charging forward. Along the way, the blood dripping from her body was mottled like petals. Gradually, their figures disappeared. Nobody knew how long it had been. In Lin Sun's consciousness that fell into darkness, a clear voice full of anxiety and worry rang out. Lin Sun. Lin Sun, you can't die. You promised me that you wouldn't leave me alone like this. Have you forgotten that without you, my world will fall into darkness again? The clear voice seemed to be repeating and exhorting him. The voice was clearly in front of him, but no matter how hard Lin Sun tried, he couldn't wake up, let alone open his eyes. It was like being bound by layers of shackles. Then, his consciousness became blurred again. Nobody knew how long it had been. All of a sudden, in Lin Sun's dark consciousness, broken pictures emerged and flew around him constantly. Every picture was fragmented. Only the anxious call was so clear. Grief, helplessness, and sadness constantly impacted Lin Sun's consciousness like a tide. Suddenly, he bit the tip of his tongue hard with unknown strength. That dark consciousness finally concentrated a lot, and he was finally able to see many scenes from those fragmented pictures. A blood-stained, broken girl was running in the boundless starry sky while carrying a person on her back. She kept running as if she would never feel tired. Her breath was obviously extremely weak, as if she would fall down at any time, but she kept holding on with unknown strength. On her pale and translucent face, there were even beads of tears silently rolling down her cheeks. Along the way, she didn't know how many times she cried, but she didn't make any sound, as if she was afraid of disturbing the person on her back. Only the anxious and sorrowful words kept repeating in her mouth, many of which were vague and couldn't be heard clearly. In the end, there was only a murmur calling his name, Lin Sun. Lin Sun. Those scenes and the sorrowful murmur made Lin Sun's chest feel blocked by something, and his heart felt a sharp pain as if it was pricked by needles. Did you hear that? If you don't wake up, I really can't hold on anymore. At this time, Lin Sun heard a murmur full of exhaustion, powerlessness, and sorrow, almost in a trance, in his consciousness. For a moment, Lin Sun seemed to be hit by something. His dark consciousness shook violently, and his whole body began to tremble slightly. Then, he opened his eyes. When he saw the pale, transparent, and beautiful face lying on one side, he couldn't help but shed tears. P.S. A new plot will start tomorrow. Name, Above the Eternity I Reign. Chapter 2669. The candlelight flickered, and by the light and shadow, it could be seen that this was a simple stone house. Xia Ji was still wearing the blood-stained robe. Her slender figure was curled up, lying on the edge of the bed. Her beautiful little face was pale and transparent. Between his brows, there was a dark and gloomy aura that couldn't be wiped away. Lin Sun, who opened his eyes, couldn't help stretching out his palm and rubbing Xia Ji's hair. Xia Ji, I'm not dead. Don't be sad. He wanted to smile, but tears flowed down his cheeks involuntarily. The scenes that floated into appearance within his consciousness seemed to be reflected once more before his eyes. In the boundless universe, she who was covered in blood was running by herself while carrying him on her back. She was so heavily injured, yet she didn't care at all, and she just ceaselessly called out to him while tears silently flowed down from her beautiful face. This was the first time that Lin Sun saw Xia Ji cry, so sad, helpless and hesitant. This was also the first time that Lin Sun couldn't stop crying. Who said that a man doesn't cry easily? After experiencing the most heart-wrenching hardships and dangers, perhaps only then would one understand how important the people one cared about the most were in one's heart. Xia Ji, who was lying on the edge of the bed, was stunned at this moment. She raised her head and stared at Lin Sun, who opened his eyes. After a long time, she said softly, "Lin Sun, don't scare me like this next time." Her clear voice was choked with sobs. She seemed to squeeze out a smile, but there were tears in her eyes, falling silently. Perhaps she was too excited, or perhaps she had accumulated too much worry and sorrow in her heart these days. Xiaji, who had always been quiet, stretched out her arms and hugged Lin Sun tightly. She rested her head on Lin Sun's chest without saying a word, but her delicate body was trembling slightly. Lin Sun gently stroked Xiaji's hair and said, "It's okay. I won't let such a thing happen again." In the end, there was a touch of determination in his voice. "Elder sister, the medicine is ready." Suddenly, a timid voice came from outside the stone house. Lin Sun's turbulent emotions were immediately suppressed and he calmed down. "Little Shi, come in." Xiaji propped herself up and said softly. The door of the stone house was pushed open, and a petite figure walked in. This was a little girl who was no more than 10 years old. She was wearing a tanned animal skin coat, and her long black hair fluttered in the wind. Her little face was young and beautiful, and her big eyes were full of life. She held a porcelain bowl in her hand. It was steaming hot and filled with the smell of medicine. When she saw Lin Sun, the little girl was stunned for a moment, and then a look of surprise appeared on her face. She said, "Sister, this big brother has finally woken up." Xiaji grunted, took the porcelain bowl in her hand and said, "Xiaoxi, thank you." Little She revealed her snow-white teeth and smiled. "Elder sister, my grandfather said that you and big brother are honored guests of the village, so we must treat you well. There's no need to thank me." Lin couldn't help feeling strange. A distinguished guest from the village? Xiaji handed the porcelain bowl to Lin Sun's mouth and said, "This is the decoction made by Xiaoxi's grandpa. He said it's good for replenishing vitality. In the past 3 months, Xiaoxi has sent the decoction every day." 3 months? Lin Sun was even more puzzled in his heart, but he didn't ask any more questions. He drank the soup in the bowl and tasted it, and he couldn't help but nod in his heart. This soup was obviously brewed from some very old divine herbs. Perhaps it couldn't be said to be precious and rare, but it could still play a role. When Lin Sun finished drinking, Xiaji handed the porcelain bowl to Xiaoxi. Before Lin Sun said anything, Xiaoxi had already turned around and left with a smile. "I'm going to tell the good news to my grandpa." The petite figure pushed the door open and left. "Where are we?" Xiaji shook her head. "I don't know." It turned out that 3 months ago, Xiaji carried Lin Sun on her back and entered a space-time tunnel after leaving the dilapidated and strange starry sky. When they appeared again, they came to a vast mountain. The village where they were now was located in the depths of this mountain. Xiaoxi's grandpa was the village head. 3 months ago, when he was collecting spiritual medicine in the mountain, he was attacked by a fierce beast and was saved by Xiaji, who passed by. Xiaoxi's grandpa was grateful for Xiaji's kindness and invited her to visit the village. In order to save Lin Sun as soon as possible, Xiaji immediately agreed. Knowing this, Lin Sun understood why he and Xiaji became the distinguished guests of this village. "It's a little similar to when I was in Feiyun village." Lin Sun sighed with emotion in his eyes. When he was young, he was also regarded as a distinguished guest by the villagers of Feiyun village and temporarily lived in the village. It was also there that he met Xiaji. Xiaji said, "I haven't forgotten what happened in those years. It's because of those things that I chose to stay here. Besides, I can feel that they mean no harm to us." Lin Sun nodded and began to sense his body. Whether this village was in the eternal world or not, the most important thing was to recover and control his power. Before long, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile bitterly. The condition of his body was more than bad. It was so serious that his qi was in disorder, his meridians were damaged, and his spiritual power was dried up. Even his body was severely injured. In addition, his imperial life realm also showed signs of damage, as if it had been ravaged by a storm. There were signs of chaos everywhere, no vitality, and the atmosphere was lifeless. In this state, he was no different from a cripple. Any random person could kill him. Fortunately, the abyssal sword cauldron and all the treasures were still there. Otherwise, the loss would be great. I must hurry to recover. Otherwise, if I encounter any danger again, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist at all. Lin soon felt a strong sense of crisis. A series of footsteps sounded outside the stone house, followed by a deep voice. "Miss, I heard that the little brother has woken up?" Xia Ji opened the door and welcomed an old man. He looked old, but his body was strong. His skin was bronze, and his whole body was full of vigor. His eyebrows were full of vicissitudes and fortitude. Lin Sun could tell at a glance that this old man was a quasi-emperor. It was just a village in the wilderness, but the village chief had such a cultivation, which was enough to prove that this world was absolutely extraordinary. The old man also saw Lin Sun, who had woken up. He couldn't help laughing heartily and said, "Great, now I can rest assured." As he spoke, he introduced himself as Wu Chuan, the village chief of Cloud Shadow Village. His ancestors had lived here for generations. Lin Sun also told him his Taoist name. He didn't tell him his real name, not because he was cautious, but because he was worried that his existence would cause trouble for this remote village. After all, if this world was really in the eternal world, then Lin Sun's name would definitely be known by everyone. After chatting for a while, Wu Chuan warned, "Miss and little brother Dao Yuan, feel free to stay here. It won't be too late to decide whether to leave after your injuries are healed." Right after Wu Chuan left, Xia Ji, who had been standing by Lin Sun's side, swayed slightly. As if she had lost all her strength, she silently fell to the ground and fainted. "Xia Ji." Lin Sun's heart tightened. He did not know where he got the strength from, but he struggled up from the bed and staggered to Xia Ji's side. With all his strength, he picked her up and placed her on the bed. At that moment, Lin Sun's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he was shivering all over. After panting for a moment, Lin Sun noticed that Xia Ji was still alive. However, perhaps because she had exhausted all her strength during this period of time, she had fainted. Upon closer inspection, Lin soon found that there were still many fine cracks and scars on Xia Ji's body. Her face was also pale and translucent. Her physical condition was not much better than his. Lin Sun did not dare to imagine how Xia Ji had managed to persevere until now. "Now, you just need to recuperate. I'll take care of you." Lin Sun grabbed Xia Ji's fair and cool hand. His eyes were filled with great pity, and his heart ached for her. After a long time, Lin Sun sat down cross-legged on the ground with great difficulty and began to meditate. However, his injuries were so severe that he could not even use the abyssal sword cauldron and the treasures, nor could he take out the rare elixirs hidden in the treasures. Lin Sun did not care about this. He calmly operated the profound meaning of the Great Way Furnace scripture, inhaling and exhaling, and silently guided and sorted out the disordered qi that was on the verge of collapse. Gradually, wisps of spiritual qi gathered from the void and poured into Lin Sun's body. Although it was only a drop in the bucket, this tiny improvement had given Lin Sun hope. Time passed day by day. Lin Sun and Xia Ji stayed in the Cloud Shadow Village in the depths of the mountains. It seemed to be isolated from the world, and there were no more disturbances or dispute. Every day, Brooke would bring the decocted medicine to Lin Sun, who was in a coma, and Lin Sun took the medicine that could replenish Xia Ji's vitality. Unfortunately, Xia Ji's condition did not improve, and she was still in a coma. This made Lin Sun even more cautious, and he almost spent all his time on cultivation. Until half a month later, Lin Sun finally accumulated enough power to operate the abyssal sword cauldron. Without hesitation, he took out some rare elixirs and elixirs hidden in it. Destruction and nirvana coexist in the Great Way. Without destruction there can be no construction. Then I will take this opportunity to remold my cultivation and temper my Taoist foundation with the Great Way Furnace scripture. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun's eyes showed a touch of firmness. His injuries were very bad. His soul, body, and cultivation were all seriously damaged. For others, it was no different from being disabled. But for Lin Sun, who had many experiences in remolding his cultivation, it was an opportunity to recultivate himself. After taking out a longan-like green elixir and swallowing it, the gentle medicine turned into a strong tide of heat and rushed into Lin Sun's limbs and bones. His body, which had long been dried up and weak, was like a good rain after a long drought, greedily and crazily absorbed the miraculous and surging medicinal power. Lin Sun closed his eyes tightly, and his body and mind were empty. He was immersed in meditation with a solemn and tranquil look. Chapter 2670. Half a month later, Lin Sun had completely sorted out the injuries on his body. Although he hadn't really recovered and healed, he could already move freely. In addition to cultivation, he would also give Xia Ji the magic medicine every day. Although the effect was not great, it was the only thing he could do at the moment. Xia Ji was different from other cultivators in the world. Her injuries needed to be repaired and healed by herself. This had something to do with the fate shackles sealed in her body. Even Lin Sun could do nothing about it. But fortunately, in Cloud Shadow Village, there were no worldly disputes, so Lin Sun could spend more time and energy on cultivation and taking care of Xia Ji. Brother Dao Yuan. Xiao Shi came again. The little girl would deliver the medicine on time every day. Lin Sun actually didn't care about the medicine, but he enjoyed her kindness very much. After drinking the medicine, Lin Sun smiled and said, "Xiao Shi, come, let me see if you have made any progress in cultivation recently." Xiao Shi's big eyes lit up and she said, "Yes." Outside the stone house, it was a spacious courtyard with old trees and luxuriant flowers and trees. Not far away was a large river that meandered around Cloud Shadow Village like a jade belt. Cloud Shadow Village could be considered as a small tribe. There were more than 1,000 residents who had lived here for generations. In the past, they made a living by hunting and gathering herbs. The men and women in the village, old and young, started cultivating at a young age. The cultivation methods they practiced were also passed down from a long time ago. During this period of time, Lin Sun had learned a lot of news. For example, the vast mountains where Cloud Shadow Village was located had been called Fallen God Ridge since ancient times. The land covered by the mountain range was hundreds of thousands of miles long. The city closest to Cloud Shadow Village was called Green Willow City. It was said that the city was built by the body of a green willow tree that had gained intelligence and reached the immortal realm. As for Azure Willow City, it was one of the 360 cities located within the territory of the Water Cloud Province. The Water Cloud Province was one of the innumerable provinces of the Donglai region. Donglai region, Shisha region, North Wind region, and South Fire region together formed the vast territory of the first heaven of the eternal world. In other words, the current Lin Sun had indeed reached eternal true world. It's just that the Cloud Shadow Village has been living in the depths of the Fallen God Ridge for generations. Their understanding of the first heaven is extremely limited. Most of the information they know is from word of mouth. So Lin Sun couldn't get more specific information. But no matter what, being able to reach eternal true world alive was already good news for Lin Sun. Buzz. In the courtyard, a wave of spiritual energy fluctuated as little Xi's petite figure radiated with a powerful aura. She started to execute a fist technique. As she opened and closed her moves, they were swift and fierce, and the strong winds were piercingly cold, causing the air to emit buzzing sounds. Lin Sun stood aside and watched quietly. Xiao Shi was only 12 years old, but she already had the cultivation of the great perfection of the reincarnation evolution realm. Furthermore, her Tao foundation was tempered to be extremely solid and robust. At such a young age, he already had such a profound cultivation. If he was placed in the ancient path of stars, he would definitely be regarded as an outstanding talent. However, according to Xiao Shi, There were many peers who were more powerful than her in the entire Cloud Shadow Village. Lin Sun was secretly surprised by this. After some observation, he vaguely understood what was going on. The core of it was that although Cloud Shadow Village was just a remote village deep in the mountains, it was located in the first heaven after all, and its innate conditions were too good. The spiritual energy that pervaded the world was rich, and the mountain treasures and spiritual herbs contained in the mountains were far from what other worlds could compare with. Moreover, the aura of the Great Way here was solid and robust. It was filled with a magical aura of perfection and eternity, which was of incredible help to cultivation. When the living beings in this world were born, it was already destined that the starting point of their path of cultivation would be much, much higher than that of the living beings in other worlds. This was the eternal true world. In the eyes of the cultivators in the countless starry dimensions of the vast thousand worlds, this place was like the legendary eternal kingdom, the world of gods. It was the supreme holy land in the eyes of all cultivators. Even if an ordinary person was here, they would be able to prolong their lives and obtain a lifespan that far surpassed that of an ordinary person. Similarly, due to the different laws of the world, if the vast thousand worlds were simple stone houses, then the eternal true world would be a castle made of divine gold. In the vast thousand worlds, once a battle between emperors broke out, it could easily destroy the world and bring about unimaginable disasters. But in the eternal true world, due to the incredibly sturdy power of the laws of the world, a battle between emperors could at most destroy mountains and cut a river. Those who could truly destroy the world and pluck the stars and the moon were existences at the immortal realm. Just like at that moment, little she had the cultivation of the great completion of the reincarnation evolution realm, but the force of her punch could only cause the air to tremble and the air to explode. If this was on the ancient path of stars, a reincarnation evolution realm cultivator would be able to split mountains and split rivers. After a while, little she stopped punching and stood still. A layer of crystalline sweat had already appeared on her face, and she immediately asked, "Brother Daoyuan, what do you think?" Lin Sun praised, "Not bad. In less than a month, you can definitely try to break through to the king realm. However, you need to adjust the fist technique you're practicing. The fierce Dao is not suitable for you." As he spoke, Lin Sun took out a piece of jade slip and inserted his divine sense into it. He recorded some of his pointers on it, and then handed it to little she, saying, "Take it back and have a good look. Maybe it can help you." Little she took the jade slip and said happily, "Thank you, Brother Daoyuan." Lin Sun smiled and rubbed the little girl's head. These days, little she came to deliver medicine every day, and Lin Sun also wanted to repay her kindness. Recently, he gave little she some pointers on cultivation. "Little she, go back and cultivate first." In the distance, Wu Chuan, the village head, came over and told her with a smile. Little she replied with a hum, and her petite figure flew into the distance like a butterfly. "Little friend, how is your recovery?" Wu Chuan asked. Lin Sun said, "My injury has recovered a little, and it doesn't affect my walking anymore." Wu Chuan revealed a happy expression and said with relief, "That's for the best. My young friend, you should be more attentive to Lady Xiaji. Ever since she entered the Cloud Shadow Village, I noticed that her injuries were extremely serious, but she still forced herself to stay by your side. I've repeatedly advised her to rest well, but she didn't listen. I can see that you are the one she cares about the most." Lin Sun took a deep breath and nodded seriously. "I will," Wu Chuan said with a smile. "I know that a person like you must not be an ordinary person, and even your attainments in cultivation are far stronger than I imagined. You and Xia Ji will definitely leave here sooner or later, but before that, can you promise me one thing?" Lin Sun was stunned and said, "Senior, please say it." Wu Chuan seemed to be a little hesitant. After a moment of silence, he said, 3 years later, there will be a selection battle in Green Willow City. At that time, Any young people who are under the age of 18 and have the cultivation of longevity can participate in it. If they can stand out, they can be sent to the Inyang learning in Donglai region to cultivate. Little Shi's parents died a long time ago, and she grew up with me. This child is just 12 years old this year. Within 3 years, she will definitely step into the longevity realm. Lin Sun vaguely understood and said, Senior, do you want me to help little Shi enter the Inyang learning? Wu Chuan shook his head quickly. That's not necessary. I just want to ask you to take little Shi with you when you leave and send her to Green Willow City so that she can participate in the selection battle. Lin Sun said with a smile, Senior, don't worry. I will definitely help little Shi. Wu Chuan seemed to heave a sigh of relief. He couldn't help but say in a self-deprecating manner, Our Cloud Shadow Village has lived in the deep mountains and forests for generations. Most of us don't have much experience and have never even taken half a step out of Fallen God Ridge. Most of us know nothing about the outside world. I'm not afraid of little friend laughing at me, but I've lived for hundreds of years and have only been to Green Willow City once. That place is truly bustling. At the end of his words, there was a look of longing in his eyes. I am old and have nothing to ask for, but I don't want little Shi to be trapped in this mountain for the rest of her life. She is still young and has a long way to go in the future. How can she not go out and gain experience? Lin Sun couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. Although Wu Chuan was little Shi's grandfather, his care and expectation for little Shi were no less than that of his parents. Wu Chuan left soon after. Lin Sun returned to the room and came to the bed. Looking at Xia Ji, who had not woken up, he couldn't help but clench his hands quietly. He would never forget the cyan bone saber, black rui, golden seal and silver hairpin that suddenly appeared in the strange starry sky. At this moment, Lin Sun could probably conclude that the owners of these treasures must be from the same force, and this force had the power to control and drive the alien beasts in the starry sky. He would never forget the 10 undying factions that had attacked Fourth Brother and himself. Wang family, Fu family, Qi family, Zhongli family, Mu family. No matter who you are, this hatred must be paid with blood. Lin Sun's black eyes were full of cold and firm, killing intent. There is no 60-year cycle in the mountains, one does not know the year. 2 years had passed in a hurry. Cloud Shadow Village seemed to be isolated from the world. There were no disturbances, which made Lin Sun's life quiet and substantial. In addition to cultivation, he took care of Xia Ji. Occasionally, he would go into the deep mountains with the villagers to hunt and collect herbs. As time went by, most of the villagers were familiar with the existence of Lin Sun and Xia Ji and regarded them as their own people. This kind of quiet and simple life was a rare opportunity for Lin Sun, who'd experienced the tempering of worldly affairs. It allowed him to calm down and ponder over his future path, review his past experiences, and make up for his own shortcomings. To Lin Sun's relief, although Xia Ji still hadn't woken up after 2 years, the cracks on her body like cobwebs had quietly healed. This undoubtedly proved that Xia Ji's serious injury was getting better little by little. Chapter 26:71. The morning sun poured down and the sky was clear. In the distant mountains, in a spacious and tidy courtyard, a group of young boys and girls sat cross-legged and meditated, inhaling and exhaling the essence of heaven and earth. The older ones were 17 or 18 years old, and the younger ones were still children in open crotch pants. At this hour, the experienced villagers had already entered the mountain, either to hunt or to collect spiritual herbs. Lin Sun sat in a bamboo rattan rocking chair in the courtyard, his eyes slightly narrowed, and his manner was leisurely and comfortable. The morning wind blew, with the fresh smell of grass and trees, and the soft morning light was not dazzling, but very comfortable. It had been 2 years. He had become the trusted teacher of the villagers. The courtyard in front of him was the school, and the young boys and girls in the village were the students. What Lin Sun had to do was to guide these students in cultivation. At first, the villagers were worried, because in their eyes, Lin Sun was too young, and his cultivation had not been restored, almost like a waste. But as Shi's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and in less than 3 months, she was far ahead of her peers, the villagers finally realized that Lin Sun, the young man who often gave advice to Shi, even if he looked very weak, had amazing attainments in cultivation. So much so that they came to Lin Sun with all kinds of mountain goods and wine, and let their children follow Lin Sun to cultivate. Lin Sun naturally could not refuse. When guiding these young boys and girls in cultivation, he taught them according to their aptitude and solved their doubts. He even taught them different Tao and methods according to each person's nature and root bone. In fact, with his current cultivation, the complete inheritance of the immortal Tao that belonged to the last era, and the various techniques he'd obtained all along the way until now, he'd mastered a single technique since a long time ago. So not to mention teaching these children, even guiding Emperor realm figures in their cultivation was absolutely not a problem. What's more, he was the first Tao ancestor since ancient times. The progress of these young boys and girls was very obvious, even beyond the expectations of many villagers, which made them overjoyed. When they treated Lin Sun, they all respected and kindly from the bottom of their hearts, and regarded him as one of their own. Wu Chuan was extremely gratified by this, and he frequently sighed with emotion. When these young people grow up in the future, their accomplishments in the path of the Grand Tao will surely surpass their seniors, and they'll go even further. Shit. Village chief and the others have been trapped near the fallen god pool by a great demon. Suddenly, a panicked and anxious shout resounded out from afar, and it broke the tranquil atmosphere. Fallen god pond. The young men and women who were meditating in the courtyard became restless. Don't get distracted. Continue cultivating. I'll go take a look. In the rocking chair, Lin Sun stood up. His indifferent voice resounded through the field, as if it had the power to reach people's hearts, making those boys and girls calm down. Little Shi, take care of this place for me. Lin Sun looked at little Shi. 2 years had already allowed Xiao Shi to grow into a graceful young girl. Her figure was graceful, beautiful, and lively. She was no longer ignorant and childish like before. Whoosh! The next moment, Lin Sun disappeared into thin air. Fallen God Pond has been a place of great danger since ancient times. How could the village chief and others be trapped there? It's too dangerous. As soon as Lin Sun left, the young men and girls in the courtyard began to talk about it. Many people were worried. Do you think Master Lin can do it? Someone couldn't help asking. Master Lin. This was the respectful title for Lin Sun by these young men and girls in the village. I heard from my father that although Master Lin has mastered all kinds of magical inheritance and has unimaginable wisdom, his injury is too serious. He has been in our village for 2 years, but he hasn't fully recovered yet. Someone whispered. It said that when the village chief and others talked about Master Lin, they all felt sorry for him. They thought that the injury he suffered was very likely to hurt his Taoist root, and it would be difficult for him to recover in this life. So, even Master Lin can't do it? Who knows? In the past 2 years, no one has ever seen Master Lin fight. What's more, he is injured now. Even if he used to be very powerful now. Alas. Although these young boys and girls respected and admired Lin Sun to the extreme, and regarded him as their teacher, they all knew that Lin Sun was injured. In the past 2 years, they had never seen Lin Sun fight, and this caused them to lack confidence in Lin Sun's mission this time. Why don't we go together? There is strength in numbers. Anyway, we can help. Someone suggested. Nonsense. She stared with her big watery eyes and shouted. Before Master Lin left, he asked us to concentrate on cultivation. If anyone dares to think about it, I will take action. Everyone immediately shut up. 2 years had passed. At present, she was the leader of these young men and girls. She was invincible among her peers and had a lot of prestige. Since Brother Daoyuan has decided to take action, he must be able to save Grandpa and others safely, she murmured in her heart. When there was no one else, she still liked to call Lin Sun Brother Daoyuan. Fallen God Pond. It was surrounded by blood-colored mist all year round. Since ancient times, it had been regarded as a great forbidden place. A long time ago, a big shot from Green Willow City came to visit, but after entering the blood-colored Fallen God Pond, he never returned and never appeared again. This matter even caused a sensation in Green Willow City, attracting countless cultivators to come to explore, but no one dared to get involved. At this time, the village head Wu Chuan and 7 or 8 villagers were trapped in the blood-colored mist. They had difficulty breathing, and their cultivation was suppressed by a strange force. They couldn't even move a finger. It's over, someone said bitterly. Previously, they were going to hunt a demonic beast, but who would have thought that they would be lured by this demonic beast and rush to the area where the Fallen God Pond was located? When they just wanted to return, it was too late. It wasn't that they were careless, and it was instead because even though that demon beast's cultivation was only comparable to the quasi-emperor realm, it possessed the ability to bewitch the hearts of others. This was the reason why their minds were silently deceived, and they were led here in a daze. Village head, what should we do? Someone asked, looking at Wu Chuan. Wu Chuan's resolute face was also covered with a haze. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, "What else can we do? We can only resign ourselves to fate." His voice was filled with uncontrollable despair. The others couldn't help but feel sorrow in their hearts. Chi. Suddenly, a black figure swept out from the thick blood-colored mist, transforming into a ferocious beast that looked like a lion or tiger, but was covered in jet-black scales, had green eyes, and a blood-colored horn on its head. Wu Chuan and the others were terrified, immediately recognizing that this was the ferocious beast they had been chasing. Black Dream Tapir. Buzz. As soon as the Black Dream Tapir appeared, circles of strange black light appeared on its fur, covering the bodies of Wu Chuan and the others. Instantly, Wu Chuan and the others' eyes became dull, and their consciousness became muddled. The Black Dream Tapir's green eyes glowed with a strange light, and it let out a low and cryptic incantation. Walk forward for 1,000 feet and you will reach the Fallen God Pond. In the deepest part of the pond, there is a divine herb that absorbs the power of order. If any of you can help me extract it, I will let you go. Go. The Black Dream Tapir raised its claw and waved it lightly. The surrounding blood-colored mist instantly opened up a path. Wu Chuan and the others, whose minds and souls were being controlled, were like puppets, walking forward along the path. The Black Dream Tapir followed closely behind. Not long after, a black pond with an area of 100 feet appeared in their field of vision. Around the pond, there were piles of bones that had decayed a long time ago. Some were in human form, while others belonged to other races. It was hard to tell how long they had been dead, and it was chilling to see. Above the pond, there were strands of blood-colored mist that looked like divine chains of order lingering there. It was strange and terrifying. The Fallen God Pond. An unknown place of great danger. The Black Dream Tapir stood far away, chanting in a low voice, "Use your cultivation base and jump into the pond one by one. Remember, don't touch the blood-colored mist." Wu Chuan and the others didn't notice the danger at all, and they walked closer step by step. Swoosh. However, at this moment, a tall figure suddenly appeared out of thin air, blocking in front of Wu Chuan and the others. It was Lin Sun. "Village chief, let me bring you back." His figure was tall and straight, and he spoke with a smile. It was an ordinary and casual sentence, but when it fell into the ears of Wu Chuan and the others, it was like the sound of the great Tao. It was grand, sacred, and deafening. Boom! Wu Chuan and the others felt as if their souls were struck by lightning. Their minds and souls that were controlled seemed to have broken the shackles, and they immediately woke up from that muddle-headed state. Lin Daoyuan? They were first stunned when they saw Lin Sun, and then they came to an understanding, causing their expressions to change while coldness arose in their hearts. They realized that if it wasn't for Lin Sun's appearance, then it was very likely that they would have unknowingly entered the ferocious and unfathomable fallen god pond. Why aren't you affected by the power of the curse here? In the distance, the black dream taper's pair of green eyes locked onto Lin Sun, who had suddenly appeared. It was shocked and angry. My young friend, be careful of this demonic beast. It has the secret skill of soul and is best at bewitching people. It can make people fall into a dream unconsciously, and their lives will be under its control. Wu Chuan warned quickly, and his face was full of fear. Village chief, don't worry. It's just an evil beast. It can't cause any trouble. Lin Sun smiled gently. His words were casual, but the contempt in his tone surprised Wu Chuan and the others. In the past 2 years, in their impression, Lin Sun had always been a humble and peaceful person. It was the first time they saw such a strong and disdainful side of Lin Sun. In the distance, the black dream taper let out an obscure roar. Its fur was flowing with black light, and like circles of ripples, it shrouded Lin Sun. Overconfident. Lin Sun's eyes were full of sarcasm as he said these words. Boom! The circles of black light suddenly exploded, as if they were swept away by a hurricane. Then, the black dream taper let out a shrill and painful cry. Its eyes were broken, and blood spurted out from its lips and ears. Its whole body collapsed on the ground, twitching violently, and its wails resounded through the world. Lin Sun stretched out his hand, and the black dream taper's huge body suddenly shrunk to the size of a palm, and fell into Lin Sun's palm. Wu Chuan and the others were stunned. P.S. Today's update, tomorrow's update. Chapter 2672. Little friend, have you recovered your cultivation? Wu Chuan couldn't help but ask in shock. Lin Sun shook his head. Not yet. I've only recovered half of my strength. Half of his strength. Wu Chuan and the others looked at each other in confusion. He could play the black dream taper in the palm of his hand without recovering his strength. How powerful would he be if he recovered his full strength? Senior, please spare my life. I am willing to submit to you. I only ask that you show mercy and spare my life. In Lin Sun's palm, the black dream taper, whose body had shrunk several times, was begging for mercy. It was trembling and was even more obedient than a rabbit. This place is shrouded in bloody mist. There are fragmented and mixed order energies. How can you come and go as you please? Lin Sun asked. This was the reason why he didn't kill the black dream taper immediately. Many years ago, I happened to find a bone ring near the fallen god pond. When I wore it, I was no longer afraid of the curse around the fallen god pond. The black dream taper was very honest. As he spoke, he opened his mouth and spat out a bone ring. This object seemed to be polished from the bones of some sort of beast, and its texture was rough and unadorned. However, it was extremely heavy when held in one's hand. Lin Sun could tell that there was order energies surging in the bone ring. It was obviously from the same source as the order energies in the bloody mist. Is there really a divine herb that absorbs order energies in the fallen god pond? Lin Sun put away the bone ring and asked casually. The black dream Ao said, This lowly one is not too sure. However, ever since I obtained this bone ring, this lowly one would often dream. In this dream, in the depths of the fallen god pond, there was a stalk of divine grass swaying in the water, and every leaf was surrounded by strange and indescribable Tao patterns of laws. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, Why don't you go in and check it out yourself? The black dream taper said embarrassedly, I did try once, but I almost died. You lured us here because you're afraid of death? A villager scolded angrily. The black dream taper felt wronged. If you didn't want to kill me, why would you be lured here? Wu Chuan and the others were speechless. So you're saying that if I kill you, I'll let you die unjustly? Lin Sun showed a faint smile. The black dream taper hurriedly shook his head and said in a sorrowful voice, Senior, you are here to save someone. You have a different standpoint. Even if you kill me, it is within reason. However, I hope that Senior will give me a chance to live since I am willing to repent. Light flowed between Lin Sun's palms and fingers, turning into a seal of restriction. The seal suddenly plunged into the Black Dream Taper's body. The latter let out a painful howl, and its body trembled violently for a while before it calmed down. "Thank you, Senior, for not killing me," the Black Dream Taper said respectfully. "In the future, you will stay in Cloud Shadow Village and be the guardian beast. Within 1,000 years, the restrictive power that I left in your body will be dissolved." Lin Sun said, "However, if you have second thoughts during this period, you will die immediately. Do you understand?" The Black Dream Taper nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. It was only 1,000 years. It could afford to wait. "Chief, is this arrangement feasible?" Lin Sun asked. Wu Chuan laughed heartily and said, "It couldn't be better. Then let's do it. However, before we leave this place, I have to trouble you." As Lin Sun said, he waved his sleeve and kept Wu Chuan, the others, and the Black Dream Taper. Then, he looked at the fallen god pond on one side, and a terrifying light appeared in his deep eyes. After a while, buzz. Following Lin Sun's thought, the abyssal sword cauldron whizzed out, scattering hundreds of millions of light rays towards the fallen god pond. The black water in the pool tumbled violently. Strange and horrifying blood-colored order energy emerged from the waves like dense scarlet lightning bolts. Lin Sun was shocked. No wonder no one could leave this place alive since ancient times. Just the power of order could take the life of an immortal. Boom! The pond tumbled violently as if it was boiling. The broken bloody power of order rushed at the abyssal sword cauldron, but it was like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. No matter how many there were, they were all devoured by the Nirvana order. The blood-red order that was devoured had transformed into nourishment, and as soon as it entered the world formed from the order of rebirth, it was immediately refined and absorbed by the spirits of order, the order of immortal Tao, and the order of the Netherhell. Lin Sun was already used to it. He even named the spirit of Immortal Path and the order of the Netherworld as Little Immortal and Little Ming. In other words, the current Nirvana order was like a mother, and Wu Shuang, Little Immortal, and Little Ming were being nurtured in it. The power of order that the mother devoured prompted the transformation of the mother, and at the same time, gave birth to three completely different powers of order. The Nirvana order had been residing in the abyssal sword cauldron, and it had imperceptibly nourished and refined the abyssal sword cauldron. As time went by, this treasure became more and more extraordinary. Boom! Amidst the roiling waves, the abyssal sword cauldron sank ceaselessly, and it gradually arrived at the depths of the fallen god pool. To Lin Sun's surprise, the fallen god pool was actually extremely deep. When it arrived at a depth of over 27 kilometers, Lin Sun relied on the energy of the abyssal sword cauldron to finally see a mysterious azure figure. At the bottom of the pool was a ghastly pale and complete skeleton. It sat cross-legged there, and it was obviously a human when it was alive. But a sword hole had appeared on the top of its skull. On the other hand, the jade-green figure had taken root within the sword cave. If one looked carefully, one would notice to one's surprise that it was a swaying jade-green divine herb. Its stem and leaves were sharp like swords, and it had an entire 18 leaves. Every single leaf was coiled with the energy of the laws of order and emanated a terrifying scarlet-red aura of curses. It seemed as if even a slight touch of it would cause one to suffer the most vicious curse in the world, and it would cause one's inner demons to arise and perish. It's actually true. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. A divine herb that grew while being nurtured by the energy of order? This undoubtedly seemed to be extremely unbelievable. Even more surprising to Lin Sun was that the Nirvana order actually appeared on its own this time, and it transformed into a mysterious lotus pattern that enveloped the azure divine herb. Bang! At this moment, the fallen god pool rumbled and roiled violently, and it faintly showed signs of exploding and collapsing. In the sky above a mountain that was extremely far away from the fallen god pool, a graceful and slender figure silently floated up into appearance. She had snow-white long hair, tender skin, ink-black brows, and slanted eyes. She wore a dark violet-colored robe, and her waist was slender while her pair of plump and soft breasts were extremely impressive. But her expression was icy cold while her gaze was bone-piercingly cold, and it caused her extremely beautiful appearance to carry a strand of awe-inspiring dignity. At this moment she seemed to have noticed something, causing her red lips to curl up slightly and be suffused with an arc of surprise. In the next moment, her peerlessly graceful figure teleported away. Rumble! The area where the fallen god pool resided suddenly exploded apart. The nearby mountains collapsed while surging torrents of energy threw the heavens and the earth into disorder and caused the clouds in the surroundings to collapse. After that, Lin Sun's figure teleported out like a divine ray of light. At this moment, within his abyssal sword cauldron was an azure divine herb that was suppressed by the order of Nirvana, and it emitted a scarlet-red aura of the curse. On the other hand, the skeleton that the azure divine herb had taken root on and the fallen god pool had already been destroyed and dispersed, and it no longer existed. Lin Sun had never expected that he would actually obtain an unbelievable fortune when he originally came here to rescue village chief Wu Chuan and the others. If he wasn't wrong, then the azure divine herb was formed from the source energy of the cursed order, and its quality was extremely high, and it was absolutely not something an earth-rank order could compare to. However, Lin Sun still didn't know exactly what grade it was, and he intended to properly investigate it after he returned to Cloud Shadow Village. But when Lin Sun was just about to leave, a graceful figure suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Under the dark violet robe was a gorgeous and peerlessly beautiful body, and her towering breasts couldn't be concealed at all. However, her expression was too cold, and her eyes were too fierce and terrifying. Ordinary people probably wouldn't dare to look at her and size her up. Lin Sun was slightly stunned, and then he withdrew his gaze and turned to leave. But he was blocked by the beautiful woman, and she said, "Did you take away the cursed divine herb in the fallen god pool?" Her voice was low and full of majesty, with a trace of unique magnetism. Obviously, it was a kind of imposing manner cultivated from a long time in a high position. It could be seen that the origin of this beautiful woman was not simple. Cursed divine herb? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and looked at the woman again, and said, "What is this?" The beautiful woman frowned and said, "Are you pretending to be confused?" Lin Sun laughed and said, "It's none of your business whether I pretend to be confused or not. You'd better get out of the way now, or you'll have to bear the consequences." He lifted his foot and walked forward. The beautiful woman frowned more and more. Seeing Lin Sun approaching step by step, she took a deep breath, and the towering breasts in front of her seemed to burst out of her clothes. But unexpectedly she finally got out of the way. Lin Sun glanced at her and said, "Smart girl." After that, he put his hands behind his back and swaggered away. Watching his figure disappear, the beautiful woman's jade face, which had a cold and aloof expression, also flickered for a while. As one of the 4 deputy headmasters of Donglai Academy, the #1 force in Donglai region, this beautiful woman, who could be said to be powerful and famous in the entire First Heaven, could not calm down at this moment. Fallen God Ridge was just a large mountain range far away from Green Willow City. It was extremely remote, and Green Willow City was just one of the 360 cities in Shuiyun Province. As for Shuiyun Province, it was one of the many provinces in Donglai region. With the identity of this beautiful woman, let alone in this remote and desolate place, even in Shuiyun Province, when the governor of a province saw her, he had to be respectful and treat her like a god. Even those prominent figures in the Donglai region had to be courteous to her. But now, in this wilderness, she was treated so rudely by someone. This made the beautiful woman almost unable to restrain herself from attacking him. But in the end, she held back. because from the first time she saw that person, she could not help but subconsciously feel a trace of danger. P.S. The second update is before 8 p.m. In addition, there will be a follow-up update tonight. Chapter 2673. Cloud Shadow Village. When they saw Lin Sun and Wu Chuan return together, the villagers who had been waiting there anxiously burst into cheers. They were all excited and happy. While they were talking, Lin Sun consciously left as soon as possible and returned to his courtyard. "Master Lin, you're back." Seeing Lin Sun's figure, those boys and girls who were absent-minded in cultivation all opened their eyes and looked at Lin Sun eagerly. Lin Sun said with a smile, "It's all right. Go on with your cultivation." "Are you really fine?" These little guys were stunned at first, and then they all opened their eyes wide and burst into an uproar. "Like I said, once Master Lin appears, who can compete with him?" A little fatty shouted excitedly. "Bullshit. You said before that Master Lin was injured and it was very likely that something bad would happen on this trip." Someone directly exposed little fatty, causing his face to turn red with anger. "I'm just worried about Master Lin. I absolutely mean no harm. Don't talk nonsense." The little fatty argued anxiously. Seeing the mess, she stood out at once with her willowy eyebrows raised. She put her hands on her waist and scolded, "Shut up and focus on cultivation." Everyone instantly became listless, shut their mouths, and started to meditate again. Lin Sun rubbed Shi's little head and said, "Good job." She showed her white and neat teeth and raised her head. Her beautiful and pure little face was full of pride. She said in a clear voice, "I won't let you down, brother Dao Yuan." Lin Sun smiled to show his approval, and then went straight into the room. On the bed, Summer Solstice was still sleeping. Her breathing was long and steady. Her beautiful face was indescribably white. Although it was serene and quiet, it was still pale. This made Lin Sun feel pity for her, and a kind of hatred and killing intent suppressed in the bottom of his heart began to stir. "If I don't kill them one day, I can't relieve my hatred." Lin Sun took a deep breath and calmed his restless mind. When he calmed down, he withdrew his gaze from Xia Ji and sat cross-legged on the futon on one side of the bed. The abyssal sword cauldron emerged quietly. Lin Sun explored it with his spiritual awareness and found that although the green grass was imprisoned and suppressed, the scarlet curse lingering between its leaves was still extremely horrifying and shocking. By now, Lin Sun had seen a lot of power of order. Judging from the aura, he could tell that the level of this strange, cursed order was very likely to be heaven rank. However, it was impossible to judge which grade of heaven rank it was just by feeling it. He needed to investigate it further. But Lin Sun hadn't set foot on the path of immortality. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to comprehend the mystery contained in the power of order. "Do you want nirvana? Order will devour it." Lin Sun was conflicted. If it was an ordinary heaven rank order, Lin Sun would definitely not hesitate. Most importantly, this heaven rank order was related to the power of curses, and it was a divine herb formed from the origin. It was incomparably mystical, and Lin Sun could not help but feel a little reluctant to part with it. "Well, I'll keep it for now. It won't be too late to make a decision after I set foot on the path of immortality and comprehend some mysteries of this order." After a while, Lin Sun made up his mind to put away Abyssal Sword Cauldron and intended to meditate for a while. Over the past 2 years, he had been nourished and repaired by various magical medicines and elixirs. Most of his injuries had healed, and he had rebuilt his cultivation with the Great Way Furnace scripture. Now, although his combat power had only recovered to half of his peak, Lin Sun had a hunch that his strength would undergo a transformation when he fully recovered. After going through hardships, it was destined to be a new life and nirvana in destruction. And it was destined to be different from the past. Suddenly, there was an uproar outside the stone house. "Wow, this sister is so beautiful!" "Shut up. Didn't you see that she was accompanied by the village chief?" She must be a big shot from the city. Be careful. But that sister is really beautiful. Hearing these discussions, Lin Sun couldn't help but frown. He stood up and walked out of the room. In the courtyard, when the young boys and girls who were discussing noticed Lin Sun's appearance, they immediately shut up and sat cross-legged obediently. And near the entrance of the village, not far from the courtyard, Wu Chuan was talking to a woman. The woman was wearing a dark purple crane cloak. Her skin was as white as snow, and her appearance was outstanding. It was the person Lin Sun had seen before. Immediately, an imperceptible cold light flashed in Lin Sun's eyes, and he walked straight over. At the same time, Wu Chuan also saw Lin Sun. He was startled at first, but then he smiled warmly and said, "Young friend, you've come at the right time. Let me introduce you. This is Madame Nie Qingrong from the Yinyang Learning Palace in Donglai region." At the same time, he said to Lin Sun via voice transmission, "This woman has just arrived and wants to inquire about your whereabouts. I was just thinking about how to send her away, but I didn't expect you to come out." There was a bitter smile in his voice. Obviously, Wu Chuan wasn't stupid. He realized that the purpose of this woman called Nie Qingrong coming here was very likely not simple. Lin Sun nodded and said, "Village chief, you can leave first. I want to have a private chat with this Madame Nie from the Yinyang Learning Palace." Wu Chuan smiled and said, "Sure." At the same time, he gave Lin Sun a look and said to him via voice transmission, "Young friend, if she really is from the Yinyang Learning Palace, you have to be careful and try not to offend her. This is the #1 holy land of cultivation in Donglai region." As he spoke, he turned and left. Lin Sun looked at Nie Qingrong and said, "Tell me, what do you want to do here?" Nie Qingrong's phoenix eyes moved, and the cold expression on her beautiful face melted like a spring breeze. She revealed a bright and beautiful smile and said, "You seem to be very against me? Your feeling is very correct." Lin Sun's eyes were calm and his tone was stiff. Nie Qingrong's smile froze, and her heart was filled with shame and indignation. With her cultivation, identity, and appearance, she had never been treated like this in Donglai region. She was silent for a moment, and her smile faded. A pair of beautiful eyes stared at Lin Sun and said, "I came here with no malice. I just want to make a deal with you." "For your so-called order of curses? Impossible. Not to mention that I have never seen such a treasure. Even if I had it, I wouldn't trade it," Lin Sun said directly. "Also, with your identity and knowledge, you should understand how precious the power of order is, right? Even if it is a deal, do you think you can take out a treasure of equal value?" His tone was casual, but it was very strong and stiff. Nie Qingrong was startled. She bit her rosy lips and said, "My friend, my Yinyang Learning Palace may not be able to swallow this power of order, but behind the Yinyang Learning Palace are many immortal giants of the sixth heaven. I believe that as long as you state your conditions, there will definitely be a chance for discussion." Immortal giants of the sixth heaven? Many names flashed through Lin Sun's mind. Wen family, Hing family, He family, Peng family, Zhu family. Of course, there is also the Luo family. Is the Luo family standing behind the Yinyang Learning Palace? Lin Sun suddenly asked. Nie Qingrong said, "No, a long time ago, the Luo family could be called the top overlord of the seventh heaven. Their foundation is tyrannical, and they can even wrestle with the immortal giants of the eighth heaven. But now, the river has been declining day by day. Even in the sixth heaven, the situation is not optimistic. How can they intervene in the affairs of the first heaven?" Lin Sun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It's not that he is afraid of the Luo family, but 2 years ago, he promised village chief Wu Chuan that he would take Xiao Shi to Green Willow City to participate in a selection in order to let Xiao Shi enter the Yinyang Learning Palace. If the Luo family is behind the Yinyang Learning Palace, Lin Sun has to consider whether to change the place for Xiao Shi. "What do you think of my proposal?" Nie Qingrong asked. Lin Sun shook his head. "What I said before is just a hypothesis. I have never seen the cursed order you speak of. Niechingrong obviously didn't believe him, but it's obvious that she is also extremely afraid of Lin Sun. In the end, she sighed and said, "Forget it. It seems that this kind of opportunity is destined to have no fate with my Yin-Yang Learning Palace. Goodbye." She turned around and was about to leave. Lin Sun suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist." Niechingrong turned her head and looked at Lin Sun. "I hope that only you know about today's matter. Otherwise, I'm worried that even if the Yin-Yang Learning Palace uses all its strength, we won't be able to protect you." Lin Sun's eyes were calm, and his voice was indifferent. Niechingrong's delicate body slightly stiffened, and anger appeared on her jade-like face. Threatening? A cold luster quietly appeared in Lin Sun's black eyes. Boom! Niechingrong only felt a stabbing pain in her eyes, and a great fear emerged in the depths of her soul. Her entire body felt like it had fallen into an abyss, and her vision was filled with mountains of corpses and seas of blood, the fall of gods and the collapse of the great Tao. Her mind faintly showed signs of collapsing, and endless despair was about to drown her like a tide. "You're a smart woman, and you should know that if I want to eliminate a threat, the best way is to kill you. However, there's no resentment between us, so I don't mind giving you a chance. I only hope that this matter will end here." When Lin Sun's voice sounded, Niechingrong instantly felt like she had been fished out of a drowning pool, and she woke up from that endless despair and fear. A layer of cold sweat appeared on her snow-white and delicate body. When she looked at Lin Sun again, that incomparably beautiful face was already filled with deep fear. It was as if she was looking at a god. It was also at this moment that she realized that her life and death were completely in the hands of Lin Sun, and the cultivation, identity, and prestige that she relied on. In the eyes of Lin Sun, it was simply like an empty shell. It was extremely laughable. "Thank you for showing mercy, fellow Taoist. I won't forget a single word you said." Niechingrong took a deep breath, lowered her head, and said in a low voice, "I hope so." Lin Sun nodded, then waved his hand and said, "You can go." This was asking her to leave, but Niechingrong didn't dare to show the slightest bit of anger. Instead, she felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She bowed again, then turned around and hurried away. Looking from afar, the clothes on her back were soaked in cold sweat. P.S. The next update is around 10:30. Chapter 2674. Watching him leave, Lin Sun turned back. Earlier, when he revealed his killing intent to intimidate his opponent's soul, he had already left a brand on his opponent's body. As long as he dared to go back on his word and do something revenge, Lin Sun could find him at once. "Is everything all right, my young friend?" Wu Chuan came from a distance and asked worriedly. "It's just a trifle. You can rest assured," Lin Sun said with a smile. Wu Chuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's good." Time passed day by day. Cloud Shadow Village was still as quiet as before, like a paradise, undisturbed by the outside world. Gradually, Lin Sun almost forgot everything about Niechingrong. Spring went and autumn came. Flowers bloomed and withered. Another year had passed. Time really flies. In front of the stone house, Lin Sun stood in a white robe with his hands behind his back. It had been more than 3 years since he entered Cloud Shadow Village. If summer solstice hadn't woken up, it would undoubtedly be a peaceful time. In the past 3 years, the boys and girls in the village had grown taller like bamboo shoots after the rain. They had lost some of their immaturity, and were full of vitality and spirit. Especially Xiao Shi, who had already grown into a graceful 15-year-old girl. Her beautiful black hair was coiled into a bun with a wooden hairpin, and even when she wore a dress made of tanned meat, it was still difficult to conceal her elegant and beautiful aura. Her waist was slender, her legs were straight and slender, and she was lively and charming. Because of years of cultivation, she glowed with a different kind of girl's charm. In fact, Brooke's cultivation progress was really great. In just 3 years, she had broken through many realms and set foot on the peerless path. Now she was a real king realm practitioner at the 8th level of longevity tribulation. My young friend. In the distance, Wu Chuan came in a hurry with a touch of joy on his face. I just got the news from my friend that a selection battle will be held in Green Willow City half a month later. Lin Sun said with a smile, "That's good. It's time for Brooke to go out and see the world." Wu Chuan thought of something and said, "Your injury, I've almost recovered, and it won't affect my movement." Lin Sun muttered, "In addition, please accept this storage ring." He took out a storage ring and handed it over. "There are some treasures needed for cultivation in here. Take it as a token of my appreciation." Wu Chuan panicked. "Little friend, you're not coming back? Xia Ji hasn't woken up yet, has she?" Lin Sun smiled and said, "I've been bothering you for 3 years. It's time for me and Xia Ji to leave. But don't worry, I will come back to visit you if I have a chance in the future." With that said, she pushed the storage ring into Wu Chuan's hand without giving him any room to refuse. The latter seemed very helpless and disappointed. He smiled bitterly and said, "If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have mentioned Green Willow City to you." He could see that Lin Sun was determined to leave. "Haha, all good things must come to an end. I'll set off with she today." Lin Sun laughed. Although Wu Chuan was reluctant, he couldn't hold Xia Ji back. Lin Sun went straight back to the room and looked at Xia Ji lying quietly on the bed. With tenderness in his eyes, he murmured in his heart, "Xia Ji, we can't wait like this any longer. Sleep well. I'll take care of the revenge." He originally wanted to put Xia Ji in his life imperial realm as before, but he changed his mind after thinking about it. Last time in that strange starry sky, Dishen invaded his life imperial realm without any effort. Lin Sun learned from his mistakes. This time, for the sake of safety, Lin Sun decided to put Xia Ji in Abyssal Sword Cauldron. This treasure was his life imperial weapon. Even if he was in trouble, this treasure could not be controlled by others. And with the Nirvana Order, it could not be easily destroyed by the enemy. This would undoubtedly give Xia Ji the greatest protection. What? When Lin Sun put Xia Ji in Abyssal Sword Cauldron, an incredible scene happened. The Nirvana Order sprinkled a rain of light and surged into Xia Ji's body. This had never happened before. In other words, Lin Sun had never thought that such a change would occur when Xia Ji and the Nirvana Order met. His heart tightened. He thought the Nirvana Order was going to plunder the shackle-like power of the law of destiny in Xia Ji's body. But soon, he noticed that after the Nirvana Order surged into Xia Ji's body, it turned into rays of light and wrapped around the shackle-like law of destiny. It was as if the densely packed law of destiny was covered with a layer of cocoon silk. At the same time, a magical Nirvana-like power began to linger around Xia Ji's life source. Lin Sun was shocked and his eyes lit up. He vaguely understood. Back then in that strange starry sky, in order to fight against the enemy, Xia Ji did not hesitate to pay any price. She forcibly activated and burned her life source, so much so that she broke the shackles of destiny. Now that the Nirvana Order surged into her, it was very likely that it would bring about a magical transformation to Xia Ji, allowing her to achieve a transformation that she had never experienced before from her extremely serious injuries. Nirvana was originally a sublimation in destruction. For example, the power of order, Little Immortal and Little Ming of the last era were both resurrected by the Nirvana Order. Now, it was very likely that Xia Ji would experience a similar nirvana. Thinking of this, Lin Sun was both excited and regretful. If he had known this, he should have placed Xia Ji in the Abyssal Sword Cauldron 3 years ago. In this case, after 3 years of nirvana, Xia Ji might have woken up long ago. She might have woken up long ago. It's not too late now. As long as she can wake up. After a while, Lin Sun calmed down. He put away the Abyssal Sword Cauldron, turned around and walked out of the room. "Let's go." When Lin Sun found she accompanied by Wu Chuan, the latter had already packed up. Okay. She was in high spirits and couldn't hide her longing and excitement. Finally, I can go and see what the outside world is like. Girl, you must be obedient along the way. Don't make trouble for your brother Dao Yuan. Also, take good care of yourself. Your parents died early. Wu Chuan, an old man who had experienced many hardships, had tears in his eyes. Obviously, he was reluctant to leave. Grandpa, don't be sad. I will come back to see you often, she said obediently, holding Wu Chuan's arm. Haha, that's not necessary. As long as you live well, I will rest assured. Wu Chuan took a breath and laughed heartily. He didn't want to cry in front of his granddaughter. Don't worry, I'm here, Lin Sun said with a smile. Let's go. I will give you a ride. Wu Chuan led the way. The three of them left the Cloud Shadow Village and went into the distance without disturbing the others in the village. Wu Chuan didn't stop until they were thousands of miles away. He waved his hand and said, Even if you accompany a gentleman for 1,000 miles, you must say goodbye. You should go now. Lin Sun cupped his hands and saluted, Senior, goodbye. During the 3 years he had been in Eternal True World, Cloud Shadow Village had left behind incredibly beautiful memories for him. Wu Chuan and the other simple and kind villagers might not be powerful people, but in Lin Sun's heart, they held an incredibly great weight. Grandpa, you should go back quickly. With Brother Dao Yuan around, you can rest assured. She waved her hand with a smile. Her beautiful and pure face was full of brilliance. You're a young man who doesn't know the taste of sorrow. Ha ha, I'll go now. Wu Chuan turned around with a smile and walked into the distance. He didn't notice that she, who watched him disappear into the distance, had 2 lines of tears rolling down her fair face. She murmured, Grandpa, I won't let you down. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He was touched by the parting between grandfather and grandson, and even felt a little envious. Since he was a child, he had never experienced this kind of kinship where blood was thicker than water. After a while, Lin Sun patted she on the shoulder and said, Girl, no matter how great your achievements on the path of cultivation are in the future, remember to come back often to see your grandpa and the Cloud Shadow Village where you were born and raised, because this is your home. Even if you get lost on the path of cultivation, you don't have to worry about not being able to return. She nodded hard, wiped away the tears on her face, and said, I will. She might not know the real meaning of Lin Sun's words, but as long as she remembered it, she would definitely remember it in the future and then experience that kind of feeling. Home. It was a place that had always seemed vague in Lin Sun's heart. But since he had Xia Ji, Zhao Jingxian, and children, he finally began to feel how important home was. It was a place that nothing in the world could replace. When Lin Sun and she were about to leave, he seemed to notice something and suddenly looked back. He saw a group of figures gathered on the mountain in the distance. They were the villagers of Cloud Shadow Village and the boys and girls who had followed Lin Sun for 3 years. Take care, my little friend. Master Lin, you must come back to see us in the future. Sister Shi, we will come to see you in the future. Wait for us. A burst of shouting came from a distance. The villagers all smiled and withdrew, and the boys and girls also shouted and shouted. Take care, everyone. In this situation, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel excited and waved his hand to say goodbye. At that time, the clouds were in the sky and the mountains were green. The feeling of parting pierced the heart. One day later, in front of Green Willow City, when she saw the majestic and towering huge ancient city bathed in the skylight, she couldn't help but widen her watery eyes. Countless figures came in and out of the city gate, which was more than 300 meters high. Some rode spirit beasts, some rode treasure carriages, some stepped on auspicious clouds, and some rode conveyance lights. All sorts of living beings and all sorts of cultivators seemed as if they were rushing to a market, and they arrived from all directions, causing the heavens and the earth to be covered in rays of light that were like rainbows and streaks that were like the rain. It was a strange and dazzling sight. It was the first time little she had seen a city since she was born, and when she saw so many cultivators, it was as if she'd suddenly arrived at a gorgeous and colorful world, causing her to be extremely shocked in her heart. Lin soon stood aside and looked at her with a smile. This was she's first real step into the world of cultivation. One day, after she had seen all the prosperity of the world and experienced the ups and downs of the world, maybe what he missed more was the innocent and naive version of himself from the past, right? P.S. Send more updates. As for the explosive update, it was postponed to the May Day holiday, because Goldfish didn't plan to go out and decided to write in seclusion. Chapter 2675. After a while, Xiao Shi suddenly pointed to the top of the city gate and said in surprise, "Brother Dao Yuan, look over there." On the city gate there was a lonely bounty list. On the list there was a tall figure, stepping in the starry sky, with a sword cauldron floating above his head. His eyes were as deep as the abyss, and his power was like that of a demon god. Below the imprint of this figure was a wanted notice. Lin Sun, the inheritor of the starry sky ancient Dao square inch, extremely vicious, cruel and cold. There were a lot of words like a trial, more than 1,000 words, clearly regarding Lin Sun as a treacherous and incomparably vicious sinner. At the end, there was a row of mysterious imprints, representing the forces of the immortal emperors who wanted Lin Sun. There were the top 10 forces of the 8th heaven, such as the Fu family, the Qi family, the Zhong family, the Mu family, etc. There were the 4 Eastern Emperor families of the 7th heaven. There were also the Wen, Heng, Zhu, Rong, Luo families of the 6th heaven. Anyone who saw such a wanted list would be shocked and find it hard to believe. When Lin Sun saw it himself, he couldn't help but be shocked. What a remote city Green Willow City is, located in the 1st heaven, Donglai region, and Water Cloud continent, but such a wanted list is hung here. There is no need to think about it. There are probably similar wanted lists in other places of the 1st heaven. However, Lin Sun noticed that the people coming and going near the city gate seemed to be used to it. Not many people paid attention to the wanted list at all. "Brother Dao Yuan, why do I feel that that person looks a bit like you?" Xiao Shi turned around and looked at Lin Sun with her watery eyes, comparing him with the figure on the wanted list. "Little girl, your eyes are like torches." "Yes, that's me." Lin Sun couldn't help but smile. Xiao Shi pursed her lips and laughed. Her laughter was crisp and clear. "I don't believe it. How can a wanted criminal in this world dare to admit his identity so calmly and calmly?" Moreover, after careful identification, she found that the two are very different. They are not the same person at all. "Is that so?" Lin Sun laughed and didn't explain. In fact, not to mention Xiao Shi, even if the Zhu Shui ancestor was here, if he didn't use special magic, it would be impossible to see through his identity. "Let's go, let's enter the city." Lin Sun walked into the Green Willow City with Brooke. The spacious streets within the city crisscrossed and extended in all directions. Row upon row of ancient and exquisite buildings stood side by side, and the bustling crowd moved back and forth ceaselessly like flowing water. The sounds of shouting and hawking resounded everywhere, and the clamorous waves of noise rose and fell, causing the city to seem extremely bustling and flourishing. In Lin Sun's eyes, the entire city was covered in layer upon layer of invisible restrictive energy, and it was like an extra-large spirit-gathering formation that drew the spiritual energy from all directions. It was a rather magnificent sight. However, in terms of scale, it was far inferior to Chaotian City in the Great Thousand Battle Domain. After all, there were many immortal emperor clans in Chaotian City, and the spirit of order, Hao Tian, was in charge. Almost all of them were powerful characters above the emperor realm, and there was no lack of immortal emperors. Green Willow City might be located in the 1st heaven of Eternal True World, but it was still very remote, and the level of cultivation of the living beings who walked in the city varied. There were longevity tribulation realm cultivators like Shao Shi, as well as Sage Realm and Quasi-Emperor Realm cultivators. There were also Emperor Realm cultivators, but they were rare. Lin Sun understood after thinking about it. This was, after all, a small and remote city in the first heaven. It was impossible for it to have a scene where there were as many Emperor Realm cultivators as there were in the Great Thousand Battle Domain. Moreover, the eternal true world was vast, and there were countless living beings who had lived in it for generations. It was impossible for everyone to easily step into the Emperor Realm. Otherwise, the Emperor Realm would be too worthless. Lin Sun took Shao Shi on a stroll as he experienced the sights in the city. This was the first time Shao Shi walked out of Cloud Shadow Village and came to the outside world. Everything she saw and felt was new. As she looked around, her eyes were almost not enough to take in everything. Lin Sun accompanied her with a smile, appearing to be very patient. He was not stingy with money along the way. All the treasures that little stream took a second glance at were all bought by him. Divine materials, medicinal pills, rare treasures, even if they were not worth much to Lin Sun, he did not hesitate when he spent money. During his years in the Great Thousand Battle Domain, he had collected hundreds of millions of first-class Eternal Void Source crystals. This small amount of money was nothing to Lin Sun. In the end, Shao Shi felt embarrassed and repeatedly dissuaded Lin Sun from spending more money. Lin Sun agreed, but when he encountered some treasures that were suitable for Shao Shi, he would not hesitate to buy them. They strolled for several hours. Shao Shi finally adapted to the bustling atmosphere. Her eyes sparkled as she said, "Brother Dao Yuan, if I have the ability in the future, I must let Grandpa and the others move into the city." This could be considered a very simple vision. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Definitely." As they talked, the two arrived in front of a grand and solemn ancient building. This was the city lord's mansion. All the young men and women who were qualified to participate in the selection would register at the city lord's mansion, then go through a test and the final selection. Those who passed the selection would be sent to the Donglai region's Yinyang Academy to cultivate. Every 10 years, Azure Willow City would hold such a selection. Every time, it would attract many young men and women from the territories near Azure Willow City to participate. However, in the end, only 10 people could go to the Yinyang Academy to cultivate, and the competition could be said to be extremely fierce. When Lin Sun and Shao Shi arrived, there was already a sea of people near the city lord's mansion. They were surrounded by so many figures that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Those who participate in the registration can enter the city lord's mansion. As for the others, wait outside obediently. A guard in black armor shouted, maintaining order at the scene. "Shao Shi, go ahead." "I will wait for you here," Lin Sun urged. At present, it was only the registration and the test. The real selection would be 3 days later. Shao Shi took a deep breath and nodded. She walked straight forward, and her delicate figure quickly disappeared from the city lord's mansion. Lin Sun stood outside, thinking in his heart while waiting. Before he entered the Great Thousand Battles realm in the past, the He family's progenitor Yun Yuan had sent him an invitation. He hoped that if Lin Sun could successfully reach the eternal true world, he could head to the He family and serve as a Dao attendant for a peerless great emperor of the He family. This was to head to a primal chaos secret realm and fight for the power of order that was born there. At that time, Lin Sun did not refuse, because according to his plans, he would travel with the identity of a guest of He clan. This way, he could avoid many risks, and at the same time, he could use He clan's resources to understand some information related to the Eternal World and the Luo clan. However, that was then and this was now. In the boundless thousand battle domains, his identity had been completely exposed, and he had become a wanted target of many immortal emperor clans in the Eternal World. If he rashly went to He clan at this time, it would clearly be harmful. In fact, if He clan found out about his identity, there was no telling what would happen. Therefore, this matter could only be put aside. I wonder if eldest senior brother and the others are still in the sixth heaven. Lin soon thought of the news he had obtained in the boundless thousand battle domains, and he could not help but look forward to meeting his senior brothers and sisters again. But soon, he calmed down and temporarily suppressed the thought of looking for eldest senior brother and the others. Right now, he was still in the first heaven. Although it had been 3 years since he arrived, he had always been in Cloud Shadow Village, and was not familiar with everything in the eternal world. His top priority was not to take any action, but to understand and familiarize himself with everything in the eternal world as soon as possible. Only then would he be able to better plan his next journey. Most importantly, he had not completely recovered his strength. Even if he wanted to take revenge now, he could only endure it for the time being. In the end, Lin soon decided to only do 2 things before heading to the sixth heaven. The first thing he needed to do was to remove the seal on the bronze box left by Master Lu. This treasure contained clues related to his mother, Luo Qingxuan. Over the years, Lin Sun's doppelganger of Tao Dao had been cracking it, but until now, he had only cracked half of the heavy restriction seals. The second thing was related to breaking through to the next level of cultivation. As long as he could step on the path of immortality before entering the sixth heaven, the threat brought by the immortal emperor clans would undoubtedly be greatly reduced. Even if he entered the sixth heaven, Lin Sun had the confidence to fight against the Luo family and test their strength. Just as Lin Sun was thinking, a chaotic sound of fighting suddenly came from the city lord's mansion, mixed with angry shouts and screams. What happened? Did they fight? The people waiting outside the city lord's mansion were alarmed. They stretched their necks and released their divine senses to investigate. And almost immediately, as if he had noticed something, a cold light flashed in the depths of Lin Sun's eyes, and his figure disappeared into thin air. In the city lord's mansion, a 10 or so year old handsome youth wearing a luxurious robe angrily shouted, "You dare to kill my personal retainer? Quick, capture this little slut for me." Beside him, a squire was lying in a pool of blood, staining the ground. And not far away, a group of guards of the city lord's mansion walked towards a young girl with a murderous look. The latter had a fair face and was dressed in a beast skin dress. It was Xiaoxi. However, her expression was full of anger, and her watery eyes were surging with anger. "I came to sign up for the selection, but you want to take me away. Is there any reason?" "Reason? In this city lord's mansion, I am the reason." The handsome young man in the luxurious robe was filled with disdain as he laughed savagely. "You little slut, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. It's your fortune that this young master has taken a liking to you. I originally intended to keep you by my side as a concubine, but now this young master has changed his mind. Listen up, whoever captures her will be rewarded to you as a servant, and you can play with her however you want." His voice was cold and gloomy. Not far away, a group of young boys and girls who participated in the registration were silent, looking at Xiaoxi with pity in their eyes. Why did she have to offend the young master of the city lord's mansion? P.S. Around 7:30 a.m. In addition, I know there will be children who want to complain, but before complaining, I hope to watch the whole story before vomiting.